It is the capper of Tamarack Ottawa race weekend. Welcome everyone to our coverage of the Tartan Ottawa Marathon. Arash Badani with you. It is great to have you with us. We had a record-setting Saturday in the 10K, and we are looking forward to what should be a terrific star-studded field on both the men's and women's side. And calling it today, Jenna Ladd is here, Reed Coulthard is here, and if today is anything like last night, we are in store for a treat where we had a Canadian record be shattered on the men's side last night.
Yeah, we usually don't see such favorable conditions here in Ottawa. It's often hot. Yesterday it was cool. This morning it was cool. So the athletes aren't going to be afraid to push the pace early today.
7 degrees Celsius is the feels like temperature, Jenna, but you made the point with the humidity, it's a little different from a condition standpoint.
Yeah, 90% humidity, so it is cool out there, but I think the sweat factor will start to kick in where it feels like that warm, wet blanket as athletes start to warm up. So this race is typically known as Ottawa traditionally, so we get a little bit of that, but altogether it's going to be great.
Yesterday was about the Canadians. We had a new Canadian record get shattered. And on the women's side, we had a comeback win. And there's going to be a lot of kind of focus on the Canadians today. What should we expect in these conditions? We're so used to Ottawa being such a hot weekend this time around. Jenna, what are you looking for from a condition standpoint, from a Canadian lens?
Yeah, I think that a lot of the athletes who have historically been here before will know that it is a temperamental race. Similar to the athletes that ran in Boston, you never know what you're going to get in May in Ottawa. I mean, we could have snow, we could have a heat wave, we could have a tornado at this point. So I think that if the well-prepared athletes will have simulated training in all sorts of environments and will be ready and prepared, or they're making some amendments with those adjustments, knowing that it is going to be favorable, so maybe it is the day to really lock in and go for it, which is what I think is going to happen. I think that we're going to see athletes taking advantage of the weather and just, pedal to the metal.
Yeah, you don't run that many marathons in a year, so when the conditions are favorable, you definitely want to take advantage of it. So we'll see the likes of, Rory doubling back from Boston and Tristan. And then we have a nice group of guys trying to run around 2:17. And on the women's side, Anne-Marie Comeau and McKenna Fitzgerald. So we have some strong Canadians who will try to be pushing into PB territory.
42.2 kilometers that'll weave and navigate throughout Ottawa and into the province of Quebec. Let's bring up the course map that takes a little bit of a different turn than we saw in the 10K yesterday. It starts, of course, at City Hall, then they will turn right as they make their way up Parliament Hill. That's actually the biggest hill of the course for about 1 kilometer. Then comes a 2K descent that the runners can make up some time. At the 3K mark, they'll reach the War Museum, then some rolling along the Ottawa River, then roll back towards the War Museum. The race will take them into Tunney's Pasture at the 5K mark. That's the first of 8 water bottles. Then they'll roll back towards the War Museum again. At the 8K mark, that's when they'll cross over to Quebec. They'll cross the Chaudière Bridge. The bridge is just shy of 1 kilometer. You see it right there. They'll take a left on Alexandre Taché. At the 10K mark is the second hill of any substance. And the rest of Quebec is flat for about 5K. There are some ice bags available for the competitors if they're interested in it. Again, it is a cool day here in Ottawa. And as they wrap through Quebec, they'll cross the Alexandria Bridge here to come back into Ottawa. This is the third hill of substance on the track. The first 100 meters of that bridge is pretty steep. And this is Sussex Drive in Ottawa as they cross kilometer number 18 and loop back around. And then once they get into the early 20s, the 22, 23K mark, that's when they'll run through the Governor General's residence and Rideau Hall. The Prime Minister, Prime Minister-elect Mark Carney, who was a spectator yesterday, they'll pass his cottage on the property. And then back along Sussex Drive, they'll pass the U.S. Embassy at about the 25-kilometer mark. And there it's pan flat for the next 12 kilometers along the canal. Now, the key spot is going to come at about the 36-kilometer mark. For here, as you can see, it's going to be flat. And that's when they'll head up the Bronson Bridge, Jenna, and it's going to be a fairly steep incline there. And then they'll lose it almost immediately.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so the Bronson Bridge is a quick turnaround. It is at an inopportune time of the event where you do not want to get a hill. I know some athletes are going to sigh and complain about it, but it's up and then it's a quick down so they can get some speed on that downhill.
So as they come around the 35, 36K mark, this could be the spot for a move. By 37K, it's flat the rest of the way. There's a sneaky bit of a grind the last 400 meters. It's 0.5% of an incline. Enough to make a difference maybe in the record being broken, but not necessarily in the result. And then ultimately the finish line at kilometer 42. That is the Tartan Ottawa Marathon course map that we are getting set for in a relatively flat track. What should we expect?
Yeah, like I said, I think the pace setters are setting a fast pace today, and they're committed to it. And because of the cool weather, athletes will commit to really pushing themselves early. If it's a hot day, you don't want to overheat early on, so you're a bit more conservative. I mean, I personally want to see them go for it as well. I think it's a bit more, as a runner, and when you're out there, you want to make sure you're pacing it right. As a spectator, I want to see people take risks. I think it's a bit more interesting, and there's certainly going to be some fast times today.
We have the elites, we have the recreational runners. Let's take a look at the runners that we're going to be following today. The top 10 men, let's start there because there are a couple of big names to keep your eye on, led by Albert Carrier, who won the New York City Marathon. You see him there, number 2 on your list. Carrier had to pull out of Boston a few weeks back because of an ankle issue. It's not 100%. And so that kind of suggests to you, okay, maybe there could be an opening for the Canadian. Rory Linkletter, 28 years young, from Calgary. He just broke his own personal best in Boston this year. That's where that 2:07:02 came from.
Yeah, that's a really fast time. Even his official PB is still 2:08, which is very fast. It's very competitive here. You see a lot of, you see a couple 2:06s and 2:07s on the start list there, but a couple of those guys haven't run those lately. Whereas Rory's in the best shape of his life right now. Has a fast 10K already this year, so he's in the prime right now. I think we're going to see Abdi Ali Galechu, as well as Belay Tillahan up there as well. So there'll be a pack of, well, who knows? At the beginning there might be quite a big pack, but we'll see once we get past 10K, we'll see who's really in contention and who's going to be fighting for those podium spots. Let's
take a look at the women's side, where there is also a couple of Canadians to keep an eye on. You see Anne-Marie Comeau among them. Viseline Shevchenko, 35 years old, just arrived in Ottawa a couple of days ago, and she's definitely going to be one to watch.
Yeah, Viseline, she's got a really fast PB, 2:21. Not only that, she's run 2:22 fairly recently. Meseret Gebra actually was 4th last year at the Toronto Waterfront Marathon. Very good time. Phyllis Ongori actually lives in Southern Ontario. She's been on the circuit for a while. Her best times have come years ago. And then not shown up here because she's making her debut is Mercy Chelangat. And I think Mercy's going to be up there fighting for the win. She's run already a 1:08 half marathon this year, so that's a very fast time. She might have one of the fastest half marathons in the field, and she's making her debut. She had a really good career at the University of Alabama on the NCAA circuit, and she seems really excited for today.
Mercy Chelangat, 27 years old. You mentioned she ran the half marathon that was in Houston earlier this year. Jenna, what are you looking for today?
Yeah, I'm with Reed. I think that Mercy is one to watch. I've had my eyes on her as well. I think she's going to be that surprise contender that comes out of the field that a lot of people don't know about. So I think that that's going to be a great introduction to her for our city, and not the first time we'll see her again.
So as you see the runners getting loose, it's such an interesting time right now. 7 a.m. start. Obviously, marathon to marathon, it's different starting times, and we're staying in the same hotel as the athletes. 4 a.m., I'm smelling the coffee in my room. I mean, they've been kind of at it here for a few hours, just making sure the body's right.
Yeah, you can't just wake up at, even though the race is at 7 a.m. and you might want to sleep until 6, your body won't be ready to go in an hour. You really have to get up and your body's got to wake up. It takes a little while. You want to be focused. You want to have already gone to the bathroom, those kind of things before you set off on a 42-kilometer run. So yeah, I came down to breakfast at 5:15, and there's only 2 athletes left there, and 2 actually athletes I know fairly well from McMaster. So Sergio, who likes to do the double, he did the 10K last night. He's coming back for the marathon. And then we have a couple of our top men are actually doubling back as pacemakers. So Andrew Alexander, who was 3rd yesterday, he's going to be pacing the women, that 2:23 sort of pace. And same with Max Turek, who was 4th yesterday in the 10K. So those guys are going to come back and set the pace for the top women.
Yeah, that pace of 2:23 is set by Mercy Chelangat. On the men's side, the lead pace is going to be 2:07, and we're expecting Rory and CJ and Albert to be right there in that lead pack, Jenna.
Yeah, I think it'll be a nice competition and battle between Rory and CJ as well. It was really fun speaking to them and watching them have that banter about chasing each other down the course. So I think we're going to see some friendly competition as well as a few, elbows up by Rory against his American pal. So I think that'll be a fun race at the start and all the way through.
Yeah, and there's going to be different packs here, right? So you're going to have that front pack, like we said, Rory, CJ, Albert. Those are like the big names that we're very familiar with. Belay, Abdi, Dereje will be up there as well. And then, as CJ and Rory are coming back from Boston, so is another American in the field, Joe Whalen. So he ran 2:12 at Boston, and he'll likely be in that second group with Tristan Woodfine. So it's a risky move to go Boston, Ottawa with only 34 days in between. I wouldn't want to do it, but like I said, as a spectator, I'm excited for it to see what happens. They're obviously in good shape, but a lot can happen in those 34 days.
It's on the right side of your screen, wearing the sunglasses and the purple and the pink is Rory Linkletter. The 28-year-old was an Olympian in Paris 2024, and he said, "My definite goal is to win this thing." He said, "My mindset is do whatever it takes to win and don't hold back." He said, "The most exciting part is the opportunity to win a race." And he said, "This can be a proving ground for me." There's his friend, CJ Albertson from out of Arizona State, lives in Fresno, California now. And it was Albertson who said, "My goal is to be ready for Tokyo and the World Championships coming up for that." He said, "This race is a prep for that." He said, "I want to be top 3. I want to have my race tactics tight and be more with the lead pace this year." We have runners literally from all over the world for this 2025 Tartan Ottawa Marathon. So many great stories over the years in this competition. The 51st running on a Sunday morning, a cool Sunday morning in our nation's capital. Will it be a breakthrough for a Canadian? Could the American hold off? Or could we see Albert Career continue to rewrite his own resume, the New York City Marathon champ, making his mark in Ottawa? Final 30 seconds before we get underway. Again, the pace for the lead groups is set at 2:07 for the men and 2:23 for the women. The signature event of Tamarack Ottawa Race Weekend. From City Hall. And we are underway in 2025.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm getting emotional. I always get emotional when I watch the start of the marathon. It is, like you said, Arash, our signature event. It is our Super Bowl. I mentioned it yesterday. I won't say too much. I gotta swallow these big feelings because this is An incredible, incredible event for our community, an incredible event for our athletes, new runners. We've got runners from all over the world, as you mentioned, and athletes competing for their first time at this distance. So you have a massive, massive field of general population athletes trying their hand at something new today. And chasing those elites down. So not only do they get to, chase their personal best, but they get to be in line with some of the world's greatest athletes and witness that history unfold. So it really is a special event, and we're blessed to have these incredible runners battling it out alongside everyone else.
Yeah, so here's the lead men. We won't see the lead women individually until a little bit into the course, as they can only have one vehicle right at the start. So we'll probably just focus on the men here for a little bit, but you can tell, if you look at the bibs, you'll see pace on the front, so you'll know they're pacers. If they have their name on the bib, that means they're racers. And we see Albert, Rory, and CJ tucked in behind the two pacers here. And right off the bat, these guys, they know what they're doing. They're professionals. Some of these pacers actually are the same guys who paced in the Toronto Waterfront Marathon. They are professional pacers. They know they're going to come and guarantee to money. So it's a good job, because if you race, you're going for a bigger pot of money. The prize money is quite large at any major marathon here, but it's not guaranteed, right? Like, you have a bad day after 30K, you don't make any money. But the pacers are guaranteed money. So these guys, they do this consistently, and they're good at what they do.
And
Pacers for the lead group, Felix Koech and Peter Mburu.
And you were mentioning, Reed, for those who aren't familiar with the pacing group, they don't have to stay on the course the whole time. They can peel off as needed.
So they can stop whenever they want to stop, but they cannot re-enter the course, right? So a pacer has to start with the racers, and they can fade back and pace a slower group. That's fine, but once they've stopped and they've come off the course, there's no going back. So you can't, you really would like pacers in the last 12K of a race, but you can't have someone lined up on the side of the course and then jump in and help you for those latter parts. So often the pacers, these guys, if they can make 30K, that'll be a great day for them. You'll see some of the pacers for the women might go a little further. Max Turek actually paced Natasha Wodak last year at the Toronto Waterfront Marathon for about 40K. He went further than he was supposed to, and Andrew Alexander did the exact same thing the year before in Toronto, where his coach had him maybe go 30K, and he went 35, 36, 37. And his coach is like, oh goodness, this is way further than you've ever run. So sometimes they get carried away helping other athletes, but the pace that these guys are setting, 2:07, just to get to 30K will be a good challenging run.
So there's Rory Linkletter, again, of Calgary, in the middle of your screen, just behind the pace setters. The game plan coming in for Linkletter: be in position to make a move, be in position to match a move. And I thought it was interesting that Linkletter said someone can actually win this race before 10K. I thought that was a really interesting way of kind of thinking about what this Sunday morning could be like in a 42.2 kilometer run.
Yeah, I would say the opposite could be true too. Mm-hmm. You could lose this race in the first 10K if you go out too fast. With the likes of Albert Carrier here, he's run New York 3 times. The worst he's finished is second.
Yeah.
Boston, he's been top 6 at Boston a few times. So he's the type of runner that could pace this race really well. So it would be really tough to get going really early.
So Albert Carrier, you mentioned New York City. The question coming in for the 31-year-old is the ankle. It forced him to miss the Boston Marathon. It was about a week before Boston that he hurt it, and he said, look, it was stressful for me. I had to refocus. If that ankle's okay, Carrier is by far the favorite coming into this race, but he hasn't competed since November. And so this is going to be a big question mark coming in 6-7 months later in terms of just how ready he is going to be to compete.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So the fact that he's racing today, I think his ankle's probably feeling pretty good, but what happened in the last 5-6 weeks there? How much was he able to train in the middle of April when he did presumably twist his ankle, right? So was he off for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, or was it not that bad? So we'll see how he goes, but if he's on, he's like you said, he's by far the favorite.
So this is the lead men's group. We're going to take you around the rest of the marathon as our morning goes on.
It'll be interesting too with Career in these first 2 kilometers, that net downhill. He may get a little bit of head start on some confidence. So I think all the athletes know that it's that downhill mark to start, but we'll really start to see once the hills kick in, once some of the turns, twists and turns and volume sets, is where those healthy ankles start to make a play.
Yeah, and right now we're looking at I think it was probably the second wave of the marathon. So with thousands and thousands of people starting this morning, just logistically, you kind of have to start them in waves. That way, you get a more accurate time. Like when you start, you're not starting, minutes after the gun goes off. The gun will go off in waves, and chip time is really what matters for the masses. No one's worried about what their gun time is. It's always about chip time. Versus the elites, chip time doesn't matter. It's gun time. So, if someone starts 2 seconds behind somebody else and ends up being closer, like 1 second behind, and has a faster chip time, that does not supersede the overall results. It's always gun time for the elites.
So this is our second wave, and as Reed mentioned, we have athletes taking off about every 5 minutes, all the way until about 8 a.m. So some athletes are standing in those corrals for a full hour before they start. So we go from the fastest athletes to typically the walkers at the very end. And if you see those little signs bobbing up and down, those are the pace bunnies. They actually have bunny ears on, and they carry their sign and stick throughout the race. Having been a pace bunny for Ottawa Race Weekend myself a number of times, the bunnies actually are in a secret competition with one another.
Oh, they are?
Yeah, to see who can get closest to their goal time. They're not allowed to stop at the finish line and hang out. They win something called the golden carrot. So is there an actual golden carrot? It varies from years to year. But there is a little bit of healthy competition amongst pace bunnies. And pace bunnies are selected based on acumen and experience, and they are only given pace times that are comfortable. So times in which they could speak and direct athletes around them. Most pace bunnies looking at trying to achieve their goal time maybe slightly under the given time, and communicating that with the athletes around. So typically as a bunny, you look around and you'd have hundreds of athletes shoulder to shoulder with you, relying on you to finish maybe their goal time or personal best. So it's a really rewarding experience, and all these bunnies do it as a volunteer.
And somewhere in that madness runs Michael O'Brien, who is competing in his first marathon this weekend, and he's doing it to thank CHEO's cardiology department for saving his son Arthur and for helping kids across Eastern Ontario every day. Last year, Michael O'Brien raised over $50,000 for CHEO. One of the great stories, one of the many great stories from this Tamarack Ottawa Race Weekend.
Yeah, this event is really an incredible charity fundraiser. So not only does it provide a ton of support for the Ottawa economy, but there are millions of dollars in charitable contributions from athletes and organizations that are supporting charities from all over Canada and across the world today. So $1,132,000 plus in charity fundraising throughout this event. You'll see a lot of athletes with charity outfits, sometimes in costume. It's pretty extraordinary, the stories that you hear and the individuals that you meet. And again, Arash, I mentioned I was going to get choked up. This is in part 2 of me feeling the vibe of this race weekend and why it's so important for so many athletes. Not only is it a physical goal, but they are doing something to support the world in it becoming a better place, and their peers and their fellow countrymen as they go here. So it's an extraordinary event of personal gain as well as community gain.
Some $10 million raised for charity as part of Tamarack Ottawa Race Weekend over the years. More than 36,000 have registered for this event. We'll be keeping an eye on the elites, but we just want to give the flowers to those who are knocking off a bucket list item or just want to get out for a personal achievement, it really is an incredible event. So back to the lead men and back to the lead women. The course record set in 2022 on the men's side by Andulam Bele Shefara in 2:06:04. The women's record was set back in 2018 by Gillette Burka 2:22:17. There's Rory Linkletter again on the left. Trailing him in the blue and the green is CJ Albertson, his friend from Fresno, California. They've developed a little bit of a friendly rivalry. And it was Albertson kind of coming into this marathon who said, actually, I haven't been in crazy good fitness. He said, last year in Chicago, I felt great, but he said the training, workouts, the lead up to Boston, he said, I haven't gotten the volume I've needed. I haven't had wow moments in training. But he said, look, if the first half of this course, I'm getting through it, if the pace is fairly quick for my fitness, with the second half being flat, I think I may have a shot in there at the end.
Yeah, CJ, he races a lot. He's done some things that have raised eyebrows. One time I think he ran 2:11 for a marathon, and the next week he did the same thing, right? So he's doing things that are unknown. He's also the world record holder for the 50K. So he's got a time of 2:38. I think that is basically coming through the marathon at about 2:13 and keep on going for that 8K, right? So it's 3:10 per kilometer. So he's done some crazy stuff out there, and he's led Boston Marathon a couple times, like well into the race. So he's not afraid of going forward. He's not afraid of doing some pretty crazy challenges. But yeah, he's here today, just like Rory, 5 weeks or so after Boston, ready to throw down.
Taking a look at the lead women now, there's the three pacers in front. A couple of Canadians, Andrew Alexander, Max Turek, who ran the 10K yesterday, leading that charge. And on the Canadian side, we're going to keep an eye on a couple of them. Anne-Marie Comeau, 28-year-old from Quebec. Reed, you know her quite well as her coach.
Yes, I coach Anne-Marie and her partner JP. So JP's actually out there as well, helping push the pace. They would probably be in the next pack. Anne-Marie is actually an Olympian from 2018, Winter Olympian,
cross-country skier. Yeah.
Yes, and she actually had a shoulder incident falling, which she actually redid again last year as well. And that is one reason why she's really moved to the road. So less of a chance of falling. It's easier. You're not using your shoulders like you are when you're cross-country skiing. So she's taken to the roads, and she's also a very good trail runner. She's made the World Championship team. She was the top Canadian at the last World Championships in the uphill and up-down race. So she's a very versatile athlete. She can run on the roads, the track, and on the trails. And she's coming off of a 15:54 5K a couple weeks ago. So she's really looking to solidify her spot as the top Canadian today at in the Ottawa Marathon.
Now, for her fitness coming from cross-country skiing to running, how have you found that translation of fitness in terms of strength and endurance? Is it fairly smooth, or has there been some really interesting development on how you have to change the fitness?
I think in general, it's cross-country skis are very fit, right? You're using your whole body to propel yourself, so their VO2 maxes are really high. So as long as their gait is efficient enough, they usually transition really quickly to running. It's just the speed, right? That's quite a bit different. Fast turnover when you're running. But yeah, she had a good career at Laval running, so she's always been a runner as well. It's just now her main focus is running.
McKenna Fitzgerald, a 25-year-old from Kamloops, BC, another Canadian to keep an eye on. She ran the 10K here last year, did it in 34:10. This is Fitzgerald's second career marathon.
Yeah, she's definitely one to look out for as well. She's already run a 1:13:10 half in France this year, so she's very fit. She's coming in here looking to run a fast time and improve on her 2:36 personal best from last year.
So the lead women at about the 5-kilometer mark, running towards Tunney's pasture, a lot of government buildings in this area, and then the course is going to roll back towards the river and towards the War Museum from here, Jenna.
Yeah, this part of the course is one of my least favorite. Personally, I find it a little, it's very bureaucratic buildings. There's not as much community support as we transition from the main residential areas to the parkway here. There's a few little loops and turns. It's fairly unscenic at this point, but fortunately the race has made this section short and it is full of support. So there are aid stations available for all the athletes, as well as when the half marathon crew starts moving, they start having some extra nutrition at this point. So they distract from those big gray buildings with some cheer stations, as well as all those extra amenities that are provided for all the athletes, including our elite athletes. And you can see some of them throwing cups. They're taking some of the additional support provided by volunteers today, which is great if you need it. Athletes have their bottle stations available for them, but they can take extra water and extra hydration from these additional aid stations that are located approximately every 2 to 3 kilometers.
Yeah, we just saw the women go through the feed station there and grab some bottles. So the pacers, if they're doing a good job, they're calling out that the bottle stations are coming. Often, look at Max and Alex are both quite tall. The women are tucked in behind there, so they might not see those tables, so they called those out. They're saying, hey, right-hand side, get your bottles. The bottles are all assigned, so all the tables and positions on the tables are assigned to athletes, so athletes should know where their bottles are. They've also decorated them to their own style, right? So you can easily identify your bottle. Hopefully no one takes your own bottle, so your bottle looks distinct and you're getting all your nutrition, because over 42K, you're going to need fuel. You're not just going to be able to carb load your way through a 42-kilometer race at this intensity.
Another wave of runners getting set to open their 2025 marathon.
So this group here is the 4-hour or less group typically. So this is approaching the median average largest pack of the whole marathon. Between that 4-hour and 4:30 estimated finish is typically when you see the largest volume of runners coming through. And what's really cool about pacing this course out in terms of letting athletes move every 5 minutes is that spectators get to see huge waves of athletes go one at a time, and they get to sort of understand that if they're following an athlete, there's going to be a swell of people and then a little break and another swell. So it does give our spectators an opportunity for those bathroom breaks or to make adjustments and to more easily track their athletes throughout the event. If you are logging into the Run Ottawa app and you are following some of your athletes, you'll notice that some of the tracking will lag here and there. Our elite athletes just sort of refreshed 20 minutes into the event, so don't panic if you are tracking someone at home. The pacing is always temperamental. It can be based on weather, can be based on those mats that they run across. There's a lot of different things at play to get an accurate reading for your athlete. Trust that they are okay out there. Hopefully they've done the work, and those apps will refresh periodically over time.
Back to the lead men as we come up on the 20-minute mark. To no surprise, there's Rory Linkletter and Albert Carrier.
Yeah, I always try to look at their faces at this point in the race. They're 20 minutes in, so now, they're starting to work a little bit more, and who looks relaxed in the face, who looks relaxed in the upper body. That can tell a lot. You want to be very well within yourself and very relaxed as the longer you can be, right? So if you're forcing the pace early on, that's usually trouble. A runner like Yuki Kawauchi, he looks like he's laboring from the beginning, and he holds it to the end. He won Boston like that, but for the most part, if you see someone really start to grind their upper body, That's a tell that they're going to be suffering by kilometer 30.
And now the lead women.
Yeah, so quite a big pack. You see some of the men have tucked in there as well.
It's 25, not 45.
So
right?
Arnaud Franconi, he was actually the top
he said
Canadian
45.
last year at this race.
Men are
So
confused.
he's tucked in there. There's probably a few Canadian men in front of this pack as well, like the likes of Blair Morgan, Kevin Coffey, Sergio. They'll be ahead. So, I'm guessing sort of like the 7th, 8th sort of Canadian men are in this pack. It's usually nice to have a few more people in the pack, especially if the pacers aren't going to go the full way. The women can have that extra competition. But yeah, it looks like I'm guessing about eight of the top women are tucked in and just sort of like just going with this pace, and everyone's feeling still pretty good at this point.
Very early on in this race, the men are averaging around 3:01, 3:02 a kilometer. The women in the low 3:20s per click so far.
I mean, incredible pace. As you see them and you see them run, and it looks relaxed, it looks comfortable. But for the average athlete, running at that pace would be a full-on effort. So to be able to sustain that kind of pace for 42 kilometers, relaxed with a good headspace, with positivity, is an extraordinary feat unto itself. Whether you're, going to podium today or going to hit a personal record. These elite athletes, their pace is really incomparable. So it is a pleasure to watch them run so effortlessly here in such ideal conditions.
Yeah, I do like it when somebody runs along them from like a spectator will run
Yes.
alongside, and then you can see just how labored they are trying to run. For context, the men here are running about, if they were to run on a track, a 400-meter track, they'd be running about 72, 73 seconds per lap, and they're doing that over 100 times in a row. So, if you ever want to see what it's like to run at that pace, just go to your local track and rip a 72-second 400-meter, and you'll get a taste of their pace.
This is the last big group of recreational runners getting their 2025 Tartan Ottawa Marathon underway. Again, more than 36,000 competitors as part of a Tamarack Ottawa race weekend.
So throughout this broadcast today, you'll see thousands of people lining the entire course. And we'll talk more a little bit about those individuals as we go today. But historically, this event will draw 200,000 spectators. Now, I saw that
Amazing.
fact and figure, and I shook my head and I said, no way, that is extraordinary. That is almost a quarter of the entire city. The population of Ottawa, a quarter, are out this morning watching these events, or last night. That is extraordinary. That is a number that rivals some of the largest marathons in the world, and this is one of them. So it is really, truly incredible that the city gets up and goes to support these athletes, whether they know them or not. And we will see that support for both the recreational athletes and the elite field throughout the entire 42.2 kilometers this morning.
In terms of economic impact globally, a top 18 running event, this Ottawa Marathon.
Yeah, top 18 in the world, right?
Yeah.
So that's it's quite substantial and economic boom for the city. When I've raced here, I've always felt that there's a lot of crowd support. I always feel that the city really gets behind this event. Sometimes you go to bigger cities and it's just one thing that's sort of going on, but this weekend this is the thing that's going on, and it is a big deal for the city, and you do feel it when you're out there on the streets that the people are genuinely excited to see you out there giving your best.
It's true. We have small businesses from across the city that will feature and offer promotions and discounts and special products specifically for this weekend. We have local breweries partnering with the event, providing custom-made beers that are themed towards this race weekend. We have health and wellness studios that will offer free access for athletes post-event if they show them their bib. We have our local spas that are going to be absolutely full this evening and tomorrow with athletes hobbling around after their success. It is just really incredible to watch the whole community gather around, and not just the downtown crew where this event takes place, but all the way through the suburbs and into the small municipalities outside of the city. It really becomes a community event and a way for all the folks in Ottawa and a ton of visitors from outside the city to connect with each other and support these athletes.
All right, back to the lead men. You see Rory Linkletter on the left, Albert Carrier out in front. He's in the middle in the orange behind the two pace setters. Again, Carrier won the New York City Marathon, is dealing with a bit of an ankle issue. He said, I remember coming here in 2019 to Ottawa. He said, I was low in experience. I learned it was a different level of running. He credits a lot of his kind of rise with the lessons learned from this event 6 years ago.
Yeah, it's nice that he had this opportunity. You know, it was a bummer, obviously a bummer to not run the Boston Marathon, but to have another race that he could do 5 weeks later, and then on top of that, one that he's familiar with. So he's won this race before. He knows the course is slightly different, but you know he knows the terrain, he knows the city, so he's coming back to familiar ground. So that, you know, if anything, that's sort of the silver lining of you know, not being able to race, but finding another race. You know, there's not that many marathons, you know, by the time late May, June roll around. Most marathons are in the spring and the fall. They try to line them up with sort of cooler weather. And, you know, there probably wasn't that many opportunities for him beyond this. As far as like, you know, a big, you know, city marathon with good prize money.
And this is a risky marathon to go for some individuals when it comes to the weather. Genuinely, it could be really, really tough. We have seen athletes in the last year having to modify their plans entirely because of 20, 30 degree plus weather and extreme weather warnings. Even in the last couple of years with some of the wildfires and the considerations with the climate change and different things going on for our athletes, it can be a tough event to train for and set your sights on for records or for travel for some instances. So it will be a really interesting turn of events today with these ideal conditions.
Okay, one athlete we haven't talked about much in the lead women's pack here is Paige Wood. So she's an American, and she's run 109.20 already this year. She ran that at the Houston Half Marathon. So she's up there as well in the lead pack. That lead pack is, you know, it's still like, you know, it's quite big. You know, you can see the men's lead pack on the left-hand side starting to string out a little bit. A couple of guys have fallen off. The women's pack, you know, almost 30 minutes into this race, it's still quite intact.
So Wood is an American. She was planning to originally run this race with her good friend Mercy, but life takes you on different journeys. Paige became a mom in November of 2023. Son brought home norovirus from daycare, and Wood hasn't been able to really train the way she wants. Will run the marathon in June in Duluth, but today will probably be out there for about 25K. Help on her build, almost a dress rehearsal for Duluth coming up. Wood, a decorated runner, an All-American at Syracuse University in the steeplechase.
All right, Syracuse, not too far from here,
Not too
relatively
far from
speaking.
here.
Yeah, in that lead pack, like we said, we got Paige Wood, Fantu Shugi, Vissaline Jepkesho, Mercy Chalangat, who's, you know, we talked about her earlier, making her debut. Meseret Gebra, very strong competitor. Gosa Dikebo and Salem Fente and Bantu Gata. So there's nine elites up there who split 5K in under 16:50. So that's how the women's race is shaping up right now.
And looks like they're crossing the bridge with the lead women now, Jenna?
Yeah, so now they're moving into the Quebec side of the route. Now this part of the course changes regularly. Last year in this event, there was no inclusion of Quebec due to construction. So there was some construction delays in the city. As we know, we're in construction season. We can never predict these things. So this is an inclusion this year, which is a little bit different than past years. And what also makes this course unique is that you do get 2 provinces in one. This side of the course, on a historically warm day, is going to be a nice relief because there are plenty of buildings that will provide moments of shade. However, today we are cloudcast, so it won't provide the same kind of relief. This also section of the course does have lots of turns. There are small ups and downs, so it's not a hilly section per se in terms of consistent grade, but it does undulate up and down. So someone like Career who has an ankle issue, if he's sensitive at all to any change in terrain or elevation, this is where we may see some aches and pains coming in, as well as the quality of the pavement. It does change from Ontario to Quebec, so we have seen athletes struggle with some extra potholes or things like that here and there. The city does its job to clean up as much as we can, but it's a different municipality in Quebec and different rules and different maintenance. So hopefully we'll see athletes stay safe.
You saw on the women's side there was a little bit of a hill there. It's the second hill of any substance on this track at about the 10K mark. Enough of a kick for the runners to feel it, but the rest of Quebec is going to be flat for the next 5K.
Absolutely, yeah. The hill that the women were running up is one that will start to set apart those who have done enough training and those who may have needed a little extra. It does start to feel it a little bit in the legs. It is a common hill that we're familiar with in the Ottawa community and that I will warn athletes about who are maybe a little underprepared for the event. For the elites, it should be completely manageable, but you never know. They're human just like us, believe it or not, and they experience the same sort of aches and pains as they mosey along. However, they don't show it in their faces like the average individual would.
So about 2 minutes ago, the lead men went through the 10-kilometer mark. There were about 7 or 8 of them. Abdi Galetu, John Langat, Demeke Tesfaye, Albert Career, Belai Tillahan, Rory Linkletter, and CJ Albertson. So they're all about 30:09, somewhere around there, 30:07 to 30:09. And even in the last, we're almost at 3 minutes now past 10K. You can see it spreading apart a little bit. I think, those little undulations, the pacers are doing a good job of keeping the pace quite steady. But over undulations, that means the efforts are going to be up and down. And, the pacers are really committed to keeping that pace really solid. But you might see some of the racers, when you're going up a hill and the pace is very, it's very consistent, you might just back off a little bit, let them go a little bit on the uphill and try to catch them on the slight downhill. So Rory coming off the back a little bit there, he did that at Boston, and watching Boston, I got a little worried. I'm like, oh no, he's coming off the back, it's going to be a tough, but he actually fought back really well and beat a few of the guys who stayed with that pack longer to finish 6th there at Boston. So it's not something I'm worried about right now if that elastic band's getting a little wider and stretched out here and there through the undulations.
Yeah, we still have so much time, and Rory at Boston really got more speed on that back half with those downhills. So as this event unfolds, we have a couple hills towards the end around that 35K mark, and then it's that relatively flat finish. So that's where we may see someone like Rory really going for it if he's studied the course and realizes those are his strengths. So time will tell.
Yeah, and that second pack of men still went through 10K in under 31 minutes. So that's Joseph Whalen and Tristan Woodfine. So Tristan would be our second Canadian man on course here.
Woodfine, a 31-year-old from Renfrew County, Ontario, 8th fastest Canadian marathoner of all time, ran Houston last year in 2:10:39.
Yeah, and Tristan's been training really well. Like you said, he's out in Renfrew County. training by himself on the dirt roads. It's that sort of like loneliness of the long distance runner narrative. He's out there in the early morning, just putting the work in, quietly going about his business. But he's in quite good shape. He actually ran the Vancouver BMO marathon 3 weeks ago, and I'm his coach, and the plan was to do it more of a training run, and he got a little excited. He ran 2:16:51, much faster than we had talked about. And I was a little bit worried, but he still bounced back from that really well. I thought he probably shouldn't go that fast, but the prize money and finishing second in that race just excited him, and he got a little carried away. So I think he's safe. I think he recovered well enough, but we'll see. But he's a competitor, and he's ready to go for it today too.
So what's the message after that? Obviously, in the moment he's going for it, but in terms of the turnaround, in terms of what you have to do to get ready for the next one, what are some of the things you share?
Yeah. So of course, after any marathon, you really have to focus on recovery. Even if you're not coming around to do one 3 weeks, 5 weeks later, even if it's going to be half a year later, you always want to recover properly. But when you do something like Rory and CJ and Joseph and Tristan are doing here, you have to balance recovery with staying fit and staying sharp. So, you don't want to wait too long for that first workout, but you don't want to force it either, right? If you do it too early, you might set yourself back. You might be doing yourself more harm than good. So you really have to listen to your body and kind of find that right balance to get ready for the next one.
I mean, Reed's being very friendly as a coach. If I had, if my athlete went for it, first thing you do is congratulate them and say, "Great job," and then you cross your arms and you say, "Hey,
what the heck
yeah,
were you doing?"
Well,
great job.
Yeah. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. If everything goes well and he feels great today,
Yeah.
I'll say, "You got away with it. Let's not do that again." But
Exactly.
you got away with it. But the race was done. I couldn't talk to him obviously on the course. So we just have to roll with how everything went.
You trust your athlete, you trust your coach. It's a two-way street, but these athletes know so much about their bodies and what they're doing, and we do our best to help them out.
We talked about that 50-meter hill just shy of the 10-kilometer mark. 3:28 leading into the 10K, 3:21 for the following kilometer. So now that it's flattened out, we're seeing that pace really speed up.
Yeah, and you're seeing Rory come back closer to those pacers. He looks like he's fourth right now. As far as racers are concerned, he's sitting in second place behind Albert Career, right? So he's still very much in the mix. And if we look at what the top Canadian women have done so far in this race, so Anne-Marie Comeau is sitting in 11th, McKenna Fitzgerald in 13th, Claudine Soucy in 14th overall for the women, and McKenna Jackson in 15th. So you have 4 Canadian women from 11th to 15th right now.
There's the lead pack on the women's side. You mentioned Anne-Marie Comeau, again, a 28-year-old from Quebec. What an athlete. Cross-country, skiing, an Olympian at Pyeongchang 2018. 5 years later, named Canada's Mountain and Trail Running Athlete of the Year. I mean, this is a true athlete we're talking about in Comeau.
Yeah, and she just loves racing, right? So it's a little challenging as a coach because she wants to do everything. She did the Canadian uphill mountain running championships the week before the Toronto Marathon last year, right? And I'm trying to figure out, how to combine the two. But she just has so much fun racing, and her partner JP has the record. He's also a national team member on the mountain running squad, so they're doing everything.
Jean-Philippe Thibodeau.
Yes, yeah. So Jean-Philippe Thibodeau, national team, like I said, national team member. He's competed at Worlds as well, and he's a good road racer in his own right. He's run 1:08 for the half, so he's out there today helping Anne-Marie set the pace.
I mean, those type of athletes are unicorns amongst us coaches. The ones that want to work and the ones that want to race. Typically, those are harder to find, and those are values and qualities that you can't coach in someone. That is just someone who is motivated for excellence and success, and it can be an absolute pleasure to work with them, as well as proven challenges on how, like you said, Reed, balancing the training and making sure the athlete isn't overextended and making sure they remain injury-free. So for her to be out here today and, like you said, doing all of those things that maybe in a not most opportune order, but finding success, she's an incredible athlete, and it's great to have her represent us today.
Yeah, and this particular training block went really well. She was really focused on the marathon without much distraction because she's an accountant. So April's very busy for her.
Oh, wow.
She likes, not to travel, not to race much in that busy month. And then, once April's done, she's got a bit more free time. But then, you're already in race month, right? So she did a 5K, and then that's about all she needed to put on the schedule. So this particular training block's gone fairly well and consistent without the distractions of doing some sort of trail race here or there.
You talked about the turns. We're seeing a lot of them, Jenna, on the lead men's side.
Yeah, again, this part of the course is just full of turns, left, right, center, and you can see that they're running through the shade here now, which would maybe providing a little bit of relief for them now with a slight break from the humidity perhaps. But there is quite a few turns here. I personally enjoy the sections of the races with lots of turns. It keeps the mind a bit distracted, especially in the long slogs that are the marathon, where it can be a bit arduous when you've got those long, straight stretches. So this does provide a little bit of excitement visually for athletes. Whether they're feeling that or experiencing that is based on their individual desires and expectations. But this part of the course does add that. It is a little bit quieter here with spectator support. So the Quebec side tends to draw a few less people. But the good news is as they start to approach the crossover to the Ontario side on a significant hill and one of the absolute best views of the entire city, it's going to start getting the loudest part of spectator support. So they will come from turns, quiet, and shade into absolute chaos.
That's when they'll be crossing the Alexandria Bridge, which also represents the third hill of real substance in this course.
Yeah, so you see the pacers on the men's side are really, they're still on the gas, and Albert Career is really tucked up. Rory looks really good when we saw him there from the side. He looks like he's pretty much tucked in. The elastic band has been stretching a little bit, but he looks very well within himself. He looks like he's still racing aggressively. CJ right behind him as well. So there you have like the top 5 guys on the screen there. 3 of them are racing, and they're probably, it's way too early to be thinking this, but they might be kind of looking around right now and thinking these might be the top 3, for the podium spots.
Linkletter has competed in Ottawa in the past 3 years. Ran a 28:40 in the 10K last May. That was a PB.
Yeah, so Rory's run 28:40 on the roads. He's run 27:48 on the track. So that was a really fast 10K already this year. So he's kind of he has run on the track in his marathon sort of build-ups before. He did a sub-4 mile last year. So he really works on his speed, and it's shown that overall, even though a marathoner is really focused on, like the long grind, speed always helps as well. And he's kind of going like, trying to leaf unturned, sort of focus on his training.
Oh, and the training has changed. He's added more volume to it. He said probably 10 or 15K added to the weekly average, and he's also doing the double threshold thing, 2-a-day workouts. He said that's new, and he really has put an emphasis on 10K speed, and he said that's really worked well.
I like double threshold workouts. I think they're really effective. Athletes hate it historically, but I think they elicit some really great results. It depends on the athlete, though. You have to have an athlete with time and acumen and discipline to be able to execute them, but I think they're an effective tool. And Reed, I don't know if you agree, but I like them.
Yes, I mean for a full-time athlete, who can, if he or she can really focus on recovery throughout the day, then yes, it is a great tool to have, and it's caught on. It's been around for a long time, but it's really gained popularity in the last few years with Jakob Ingebrigtsen, setting records and is a very big proponent of the double threshold workouts. So yeah, people I find get carried away with them. They see people doing them, and then all of a sudden they start doing them every single week, and that's typically not how you put things into your training plan. You would ease into them, introduce them, but maybe not go full on. But athletes that have are full-time athletes and who can focus their day on recovery certainly are doing this quite a bit.
So here you are, the lead men, and this is where it gets a little tricky. They're crossing the Alexandria Bridge to come back into Ottawa. The first 100 meters of this bridge is quite steep. You can see it. Great job by our camera crew here to kind of capture that. It's going to get flattened for about 600 meters, and then the next 300 meters or so, it's going to be a gradual climb, about a 4% incline. So that is how the runners are going to come back into Ontario and back into Ottawa.
Yeah, so this section is stunning. So you can't really see it on this view, but if you're familiar with the city, the view that you see if the athletes looked right, you see the river and Parliament buildings, the backside. If you look left, you can see Quebec, and you can see our Rockcliffe section of our city, where the Governor General's residence is, where the Prime Minister's residence is. Both directions are stunning. So this is such a beautiful part of the race, but very technically challenging and creating more divide with athletes with those inclines. So from the bottom of this hill, where you had that steep incline to start, now it's flattened out. It does gradually continue to incline all the way up to our National Gallery. So they will pass the National Gallery on the left. You'll see our big spider, Mama, who's there. We'll have some tourists there. And that artery going left across the National Gallery is really small. So there's not a lot of space for athletes. It'll be fine for the elite athletes. For the general population, it gets a little bit crowded. But that is where the crowds really lay it on thick. You have athletes that are going to be coming to and from in a couple hours on the out and back section, as well as the breakoff point for the half marathon athletes that will begin at 9 a.m. So you get an opportunity, a vantage point to see elites coming in, general population going out, and half marathon athletes turning all at once. So you best believe that crowd is just motivated. So it's personally one of my most favorite spots. This section of the course I warn athletes about because it is that gradual uphill, and you can see it happening again here now as they slowly make their way up across the National Gallery on their left, and they'll be turning onto Sussex Drive heading into Rockcliffe next. And there's the crowd starting to thicken up, and you can hear them cheering. It's a really special time, and hopefully the elite athletes are noticing those individuals or spotting maybe some of their coaches, some of their peers, partners, and along this section.
Yeah, it's interesting to see the strengths and weaknesses of some of the top men here. So CJ Albertson actually just went ahead of the Pacers for a few strides on that downhill there. He's a good downhiller. He just sort of like, lets his legs go with the gravity there. And you also saw Rory. It looks as though Rory is really he's not going up the hills that fast. He's probably doing that on purpose to keep an even heart rate, so not to spike his effort levels. He's letting the pack go a little bit on the uphills, and he is so far caught back up to the lead pacers each time. He's kind of let them go a little bit. So the course from now on is a bit flatter than what we've seen, especially for the men. The women still are coming up to that bridge, but for the men, the course does flatten out now, and maybe you'll see the pack sort of stay a bit more consistent rather than somebody coming off here or there. But you can see Rory trailing a little bit. I'd normally be really worried about that, but watching him come back from Boston, I'm not as worried.
Totally.
He's a really tough competitor, and he still has his eyes set on that lead pack there.
It's still early. We still have time. I mean, not according to Rory and his 10K, big game setting strategy. But again, he knows that just like we know that anything can change at any time. And those last 10K is really where we see some athletes make some big moves.
So now on the screen here, we're seeing JP Thibodeau and Jake Cameron pace Anne-Marie Comeau. So Jake was supposed to pace other athletes, I think. I don't know if they fell off or whatnot, but right now Anne-Marie has two pacers. So Jake Cameron there, he's with Mile to Marathon. Dylan Wykes' coaching crew. They have a I don't know how many athletes they have here, but
Huge,
probably hundreds.
huge, yeah.
They do a great job, and Jake is one of their coaches. And him and Dylan are preparing, I think, for Grandma's Marathon coming up. And Dylan's a legend in the city. He's an Olympian. He was 20th at the 2012 Olympics in the marathon, and so that's his buddy, his coaching, his personal coach, and also his training partner. So they're giving Anne-Marie some company here. And here's the lead women coming up to that hill, as you talked about, Jenna. And Kevin Coffey is now in that group. So Kevin is a good runner, and he must have fallen off that second kind of group of Canadians, and he's tucked in very well here with the lead women. That hill does not look fun, by the way.
Yeah, it's not great.
If it looks steep on camera, it's
Yeah.
steep because everything looks flatter on camera.
So typically when we do group runs in the city and training runs, we'll take this section because of the view, and I truly wish, if you're not from Ottawa and you're tuning in, the view is extraordinary, but I usually stop people mid-bridge and I say, take out your phones, and we do pictures, we do selfies, we do group photos, and I said, stop your watches, it doesn't matter. This is Canada. This is beautiful. We have a privilege to run in this city, to be safe, to have this extraordinary access in this lovely city of ours. So that bridge is really, really important in our city. And it was closed for the marathon for a couple years because of construction and renovations, but it's open again this year, and I'm so thrilled that our athletes get to cross it again, because it's a little legendary crossing.
And actually, my first marathon ever, he was here in 2009, and I stopped on the bridge to take a pee.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Because there's no spectators there. I was
There
like,
isn't, yeah.
I had to
That's
go,
right.
and I was like, where can I go? Where can I go? And finally, and I think that was the only time in a marathon that I had to stop to pee. But Rory's doing a really convenient job for us, staying with the lead men. We have 3 motorcycles on course, so we have we have one for the lead men, one for the lead women, and then one that would roam for the lead Canadian man or Canadian woman. And Rory's doing a great. We often don't see a Canadian with the lead group, but Rory's that caliber of athlete that can do it. So. Yes, conveniently. So he's up there rolling with the lead group. I can't even remember the last time we've really had a lead man here rolling with the lead group. They bring in really good runners, like you said, from all over the world. Typically Kenya, Ethiopia, and we usually don't have anybody that can keep up with them. But Rory's still in this, almost an hour into the race.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see the men evolve here. It's a really good example of anything can happen and where strengths are with each individual, because 1 minute CJ's leading, the next minute it's Rory, the next minute it flips again. So again, I don't know, I wish I could make a prediction here. I think that you're right that we could see the top finalists here, but who takes it at this point is, I don't know.
Well, now that it's flattened out, we're seeing them speed up too. They've gone from 3:05 split to 2:55.
Wow.
From kilometer 16 to 17, now that they've gotten over that steep climb. Temperatures have crept up to 9 degrees Celsius, although the humidity is over 90%. It was interesting talking to Rory Linkletter this week. He just said, look, these conditions, it's one less thing to worry about. He said it's as close to a lab setting that you're going to get in a road race. I thought that was a really interesting way of putting it.
Yeah, if I was to pick a temperature to race a marathon, it would probably be 7 degrees. So
right.
what they started with was great. as Jen mentioned, the humidity is not ideal, but as far as temperature-wise, like, that's perfect. There looks like a little bit of confusion on which way to go there, but they figured it out.
Yeah, there are sections of this course where the volunteers really have a lot of responsibility. And in the elite technical meeting that we had the privilege of chatting about, there was a lot of emphasis on who to follow, who not to follow. Some really big capital letters: do not follow motorcycles, pay attention to this. And I think the indication was that mistakes have been made in the past, and we know that there's been athletes who have gone the opposite direction or been disqualified for doing something that they didn't mean to based on direction. So because there are so many turns and because there are so many out and backs on this course, as well as the combination of the half marathon route being partially along the marathon route with different turnoff points, the volunteers, who are volunteers, have to make sure that they see the bibs of the individuals, make sure they're classified as half or full marathon athletes, and direct them appropriately. But we know, and Reed, you would know this as well, is when you're focused and you're racing a marathon is that tunnel vision. And nothing around you really becomes as clear as your goals. So some of those athletes might not be as cognizant of where they're going and what they're going, is where you see that confusion. But the volunteers are going to do their best. But sometimes you get a little bit, oh, here they're coming, and then you don't know, which way to go, or some athlete, but we'll see. It looks like crisis has been averted, but it'll get a little bit more chaotic as the general population comes through and when the half marathon starts in an hour's time.
There's Anne-Marie Comeau, the lead Canadian, 4th career marathon for the Quebecer.
Yeah, she had a couple marathons before I coached her where she wasn't really that focused on them, and she still did really well. And then, her last couple of marathons have been 2:30, 2:34, and 2:35, so very competitive. And today she decided, training's been going well. She's going to go for a sizable PB. She has already run 1:11:53 for the half marathon this year.
Wow.
So it's it was a great marathon there towards the end of March, and since then she's just put her head down, trained hard, and that 5K of hers went really well 2 weeks ago in Quebec with a 15:54. So she's very ready, and she's committed to sort of like see how she can do with a sort of a 2:30, 2:31 pace here in Ottawa.
She looks super smooth running uphill. If you didn't know that this section was uphill, she looks great. She looks super relaxed. Good job, coach.
Now she has finished top 20 in the world in the uphill championship.
Okay,
so that's a very steep uphill race. That's about an hour. You really don't even get these races, around here in Canada. We just don't have the mountain. So the last one, the last World Championships was in Austria. So she's running up the Alps. So these little hills, although at this pace they're going to be tough, as far as the steepness is concerned, she might not even consider that a hill.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's relative, right? A lot of these athletes are, this event is touted as flat, and as someone who lives in this city, I would argue that. I would say, hey, there are some hills, but then you would go to any other place in the world where there are actual real hills and realize how flat in comparison it is. So it makes sense. But yes, you're right. She does look so smooth. So the men here are coming through that raw cliff area, and lots of trees, lots of fresh air in this area. Whether that makes a difference or not, if they can feel it, it may. There are opportunities for shade here with those big trees and with a lot of the housing that they're going to go through in those the neighborhoods of Rockcliffe. Again, not making a huge difference today, but this section is really community oriented. I don't think they'll have them out for the lead men and women this morning, but oftentimes there are fire trucks that will bring their fire hoses out and create little misting stations that you can run under. There are sponge stations for the general population, and then we see the residents of Rockcliffe out with their hoses with extra snacks, bananas, popsicles, freezies, donuts. So they really come to town and they really support athletes. I don't anticipate the elites taking advantage of those things, but the general population absolutely will grab a freezie and run through those fire hoses to cool down for sure.
Yeah, the elites have their own bottles set up, so they're, like we talked about earlier, with decorating them, they're also putting exactly what they want in them, what they've trained with. You saw them just a few minutes ago, or even just about a minute ago, grab those bottles. So the bottle stations happen about every 5K, and they'll grab their drink, and it's got exactly what they want in it. You know, a lot of the athletes sometimes will put even a gel, take that to the bottle, take the gel, take the drink. Most athletes here would just mix their concoction to the carb ratio that they want. So, wow, this looks like a steep hill. So,
yeah, so
I remember watching this last year and thinking.
There are sections of Rockcliffe that Rockcliffe is up on a hill. It is a community, a relatively affluent community where we see our leader of the opposition housing. We have embassies from all over the world in this area, and it is built on a series of hills. So there are small little inclines in this area, small false flats, a couple descents. So it depends. Like, again, if you are used to hills, if you can tackle them and get through them well, you'll barely notice. But if you are coming from a flat area, those athletes coming from, you know, center of Canada, Saskatoon, will feel these hills.
And this looks like a decisive move for me. So we've seen the two pacers out front all day. That's Albert Career now with one of the pacers. So Albert is pushing the pace. Obviously, he's very strong on the hills. To New York City's a hilly marathon. He's won that. He's been second there. He's done really well in Boston. Rory's still giving chase here. You can see him. He's the next guy back. But you know, it's one pacer and Albert Career out there. He's checking his watch, checking his splits, looking over to see what's going on. His stride doesn't really look affected, like he's nursing a bad ankle or anything. Sometimes the adrenaline of the race can, be enough to get over like a slight injury like that. But he's putting it to them right now, and this could be a decisive move. We've seen Rory sort of back off on the uphills, like I said, and catch back up. So we'll see if Rory and CJ here are able to, use the downhill and make some ground back up on Albert Career.
Albert Career, 31 years old, only began racing back in 2016. He made his debut in Barcelona. This is his first competition of 2025. Started as a runner back in 2010 as a teenager. It was his cousin who was running, Bena Kibe Echo. And Albert said, you know what, that's pretty fun. He said, it was my cousin who motivated me to run. Both of his brothers also were runners. And now Career has made this a career for himself. Coming off the ankle injury, he said, I learned a lot about discipline. I learned a lot about focus. And now here he is, well out in front at around the midway point of the 2025 Tartan Ottawa Marathon.
It's really interesting to see his running style also in observation compared to his pacer and compared to some other athletes. You can see some internal rotation in his quads, a little bit of external rotation from the knee, almost fishtailing those feet out. And it just goes to show that, we have a lot of advice and suggestions based on proper running form and gait and stride. And these athletes work with the best coaches and doctors and physiotherapists in the world. But sometimes your gait is your gait. Your position is your position. And you can be still the best athlete in the world and not have that perfect alignment left, right, and center. And it looks like Career has a little bit of a little kind of unique body position and anatomical placement. Yeah, it looks like it would be noticeably cooler through this area, especially as the roads haven't completely dried in this Rockcliffe area. So with the cloud coverage, the extra foliage, the elevation in this area, it's probably going to feel cooler in the air, but a little bit of that humidity blanket as they're running through, up and down these micro hills. You can really see that shade coming through with the lead men. Yeah. Again, much relief on a hotter day. For the gentlemen today and the women today, I'm not too sure it's going to make a huge difference, but maybe those little waves of refreshing coolness will be helpful or not. I mean, we'll hear from them at the end today whether it was helpful or not, and I'm sure anything is better than nothing.
Yeah, ask Carrera about the conditions. He said, oh, the cold, I'm okay in the cold.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think
even for a Kenyan.
Yeah, I was going to say if you're registering for an event in Ontario, Canada, and again, like I mentioned, you have the best coaches and the best team in the world to assist you. This isn't a surprise. You're aware of these events. We're not seeing athletes register for the the Winterman events in these parts because that -30 is less than to be desired. But this is reasonable. And now they're coming in through the Governor General's residence, so a little bit higher security. Typically, we can see sometimes the Governor General's outside cheering on the athletes. You may even see Prime Minister Mark Carney standing by as well. You can see the extra police presence there. You go. We've got those cooling stations as well. But this area can be really special, especially for Canadians, seeing some of our federal representation cheering them on.
Prime Minister-elect Carney was a spectator yesterday for the 10K, living in a cottage on the property now at Rideau Hall, of course.
Oh, there he is.
There he is.
There he is. Yeah.
In the blue sweater, waving. Yes, we see you.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and you know what? That's such a blessing to run in the city, to have our leaders.
Isn't it?
Very,
just by himself outside on a Sunday morning.
Very Canada, yes, yes. The amount of times I've ran, through and across Parliament, and have ran into our party leaders, or have ran shoulder to shoulder in the past with former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. It's really special, and they're always running with their security detail, but only in Canada would that be available.
So we haven't talked about it much, but if you're tracking runners at home, go to the Run Ottawa app. You'll be able to follow runners, search their names, see how they're doing. We are getting a lot of our stats from Sports Stats. They have live updates. Sometimes it's a little messy when you're looking at that, but as far as tracking your friends and family, use the Run Ottawa app, type in their name, and you'll be able to see how they're progressing through the course.
It is a good 100-meter lead at least for Albert Carrier.
And he's broken away from his pacer.
Yeah, so Felix Koech, the pacer there, is in the hurt box, and he's probably thinking to himself, stay with him to get paid, stay with him to maximize my pacing duty. But at this point, I would think that Felix's best option is to wait for the next group and try to pace them a bit further. But the job is to stay with the leaders. But Albert looks very strong right now.
Let him go.
And he's on a tear.
So the athletes are now on the switch back into the city. So you're going to see on the right-hand side of the lead men our elite athletes. On the left-hand side, you're going to see the faster runners from the general population. So those athletes that are 3:30 or less approaching the Rockcliffe section of this event. Many people won't be able to see those elite athletes getting into that finishing section on the canal, but there will be a handful of individuals, as you can see, that are passing them now, that are going to be rooting them on and cheering them on. And as they approach back into the center of Ottawa, again, those crowds are going to start to swell, especially with larger crowds accumulating for the general population athletes, as there are more of them.
And Carrier is on a tear. His last kilometer, 2:31.
Wow.
I actually don't believe that.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the screen saying to myself, is that right?
Yeah, Yeah, 231's very. That he wouldn't be able to do a.
I mean, you
3K
soared
like
past
so.
the pacer.
Yeah, there's no doubt that he is running really fast. He's been averaging about 3 flat per K.
Yeah.
I would think a 250 kilometer would be quite fast and enough to sort of dispatch himself from the rest of his competition. So I'm gonna say 231 is probably not accurate, but needless to say, he has picked up the pace. And I mean, if you look, you can kind of see Rory and CJ back there. The pacers behind Albert, but even beyond that, Rory and CJ, and it's you kind of have to really squint and to make those two figures out. So there's a very sizable lead, and we're past halfway in the marathon right now. So it's when things separate here and they're going in this direction, it's very hard to come back from a gap like that. So, for instance, that we're getting half marathon splits. So he was 1:03:12 at halfway. Simple math here. We're looking at a 2:06:24 marathon time if he keeps that same pace up. So 2:06:24. That is 20 seconds off the course record pace here. So maybe he's got that in sights. There's I kind of lied earlier, said that the hills were done. It's actually from 25K on that it's a bit more of a flatter course. So theoretically, the second half of the course could be faster, and maybe he's eyeing that course record.
Back to the lead women.
Yeah, they're still a tight pack. I'm surprised there hasn't been too much more breakaway. Really similar to that 10K yesterday where the pack held for a little bit longer. So we discussed it last night, and I chatted with Reed about it, the difference between the men and the women. Whether the men, were making a bad choice by breaking away early, or whether they were making a good choice and just going, full gas. So the women seem to be maybe a bit more conservative here, and then we'll see those splits later on. So kind of following suit with that 10K yesterday. It's really interesting to see the different strategies. Maybe coincidental. Maybe they are going full gas. They just happen to be really evenly matched. But what do you think, Reed?
Yeah, hard to say. But I mean, if you look at Albert's pace of, he's on a 2:06 pace. There's only one other athlete in the field that could really do that, and that was a few years ago. He's probably the only athlete that can run 2:06 low on this course. Versus the women, they were headed at 2:23 pace, and there was a few women who have already kind of run that time. So it's a bit more realistic of pace. They also have 3 pacers, so maybe those, having 3 pacers is a bit more to keep that pack intact. The women have probably come through halfway now. They probably just went through halfway recently. We don't have that. Oh, we do have the splits now. So they were 1:10:57.
1:10:57. Yeah.
So, if you think of a 1:11 half, they're actually on 2:22 pace. So they actually are going a little bit quicker than they intended to, and yet still have, looks like about 6 or 7 women in contention there. So yeah, very different than the men's race where Albert took it to everybody on those hills.
Definitely. You can hear the crowds starting to swell in different areas. It's really great to even hear it from here, and you can see them a few feet deep as they cross towards the canal.
Yeah, so the lead women who are in the thick of it still, we have Paige Wood from the U.S., Fantu Shugi from Ethiopia, Mesrit Gebre, and Salem Fente also from Ethiopia, and then 2 Kenyans, Visaline Jekesho and Mercy Chelangat, who we talked about a bit more earlier with the NCAA career at the University of Alabama, having run 1:08 already this year in Houston, making her debut here. So that you can see the 22-kilometer mark. Max Turek looks like he had a little fun on the sprinkler. Nobody else really took the wider line for that, but
Will we
Max,
see the Prime Minister again on the right here? That's the question as they come to the Governor General's headquarters.
Yeah, I'm assuming he's going to hang out there for the majority of the event. And Prime Minister has run this event before, so he's familiar with the course. He's familiar with the pulse of the whole weekend. Our mayor is also out running the marathon right now. Recently crossed the 15K point, I believe. But we've got all of our representation out this morning. Not all of them, but we've got a lot of big, important individuals either spectating or physically participating in our events.
So the lead women remains a very competitive race. I want to talk about Mercy Chelangat, the 27-year-old first Ottawa marathon. What a story Chelangat is. She's from Kenya and landed at the University of Alabama, where she wrapped up her college career. She actually started at Texas, UT Rio Grande Valley, transferred to Alabama in the spring of 2019. She only started running 2 years prior to that in high school, and then got identified, and she said everything was really new for me in college. I said to her, "You actually ran at SEC Alabama?" She looked at me, she said, "Roll Tide." So I said, "Yeah, you actually did." But she says now this is a job, and she says it's gone from, a bit of a hobby and an activity that it means a lot to me. And she said, "My coaches pushed me so much in college." Now her training headquarters in Flagstaff, Arizona. She does strength training as part of it, high mileage every day. She's a second-generation runner. Dad ran in high school, and here she is almost 7 years in North America, where she's making her marathon debut.
Yeah, she trains with that Flagstaff Hoka group. So it's they've had really good marathoners over the years. They've had a lot of success at Alafine. Also another Kenyan who's American. Made the Olympic team back in 2020. So they got a good program there. Flagstaff is a great place to train. We saw Gracelyn Larkin, our Canadian 10K champion from last night, also trains in Flagstaff. She's with the Under Armour group led by Stephen Haas. And they're coming down here from altitude, so they get that. The disadvantage, I would say, is that they're not really as used to humidity up in dry Flagstaff. So they're coming here, and the humidity might be a bit of a challenge, but breathing sea level air is a relief for them.
So Chelangat ran the half marathon in Houston earlier this year, and then she went back to Kenya, visit family, and spend some time back home. But while she was there, she linked up with some elite marathoners. And chatting with her coach, Jack Mullaney, Jack said that really opened Mercy's eyes to what it takes, and said Mercy came back from that trip home in the best fitness of her career.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of the Kenyan-based Americans go back to Kenya and sort of like just jump into these big training groups, right? And you can get into a training group there with dozens of runners who can run, say for the women, under 225, right? Where there's very few of those in North America. So you're really, you're in the thick of it, and you're getting pushed, as many days as you want to. You could every day, but that's a bit too much. But they're jumping in, and of course with the men as well. Running at 6 o'clock in the morning, hilly terrain, and even higher altitude than Flagstaff. So typically where Mercy trains, it's more like 2,400 meters versus 2,100 meters in Flagstaff. So Flagstaff even seems easy. And if you've ever been there trying to run or even walk up a flight of stairs, you're out of breath pretty quickly.
Yeah, we just saw Andrew Alexander bow out the pacer. He went and trained in Flagstaff for about 6 weeks. He said it wasn't for me. The altitude, he said, it really affected him physically.
Yeah, it's tough. A lot of athletes find that the more often they go, they kind of adjust a bit better each time. So, maybe he'll try again. But yeah, and sometimes it can be discouraging, right? You're putting out a certain effort, and you're looking down at your watch, and you're not seeing the splits you normally would. But once you realize, the cost benefit of running a bit slower, but you're still sort of getting the same physiological effect. Altitude training does work, and if you go to a cool place like Flagstaff, it's just it's a nice distraction, especially if you're Andrew and you're doing the grind in Toronto week in, week out to get somewhere where there's a bit more green space and fresh air. It's nice.
It's Albert Carrier and nobody else in the lead men of this 2025 Tartan Ottawa Marathon. They tell us his last kilometer was 2:45.
That's a little more believable. Okay. It's still surprisingly fast. It doesn't look like he's running 2:45 right now, but for him to surge at 2:45 is something that could very well happen in a race. And then he would just settle back into more of that like 3 flat per kilometer sort of average that he's been doing.
So you can see that chase group in behind, significant ways behind. What would be, with someone like Rory Linkletter, who is gunning for a win today, which may not be in the reach now. I mean, again, things could change, but what would be going through his head now, knowing that maybe that opportunity is not as accessible as it was early on in this race? Would he, be battling maybe some demons here, or do you think he's resetting his mind to hit that second place spot?
Yeah, that's a really good question. There's so many things going through your head, right? Especially when you're starting to hurt. You're trying to overcome that negative talk with positive talk.
There he is.
He's still, he's still competitive with CJ. So there's probably a little bit of even if they were in 7th and 8th spot, he might still be looking to get the best of him. But yeah, right now, to finish on the podium at the Ottawa Marathon is a big deal, right? So. Right now you're looking at 2nd, 3rd, 4th place. One of these guys is not gonna be on the podium, and the difference between prize money in 2nd and 4th will probably be significant. Interestingly enough, we saw CJ take that tangent correctly. He started moving to the left-hand side of the road before the other two. They kind of looked over and saw CJ do that, and then followed suit. So CJ's got his eyes up on the road. And of course, in the back of their head, they're probably thinking, is Albert's ankle going to hold up? Maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
Of course, hopefully it does. But maybe if you're sitting there in 2nd place, you're thinking,
yeah,
maybe you could give out.
And there are a few more turns coming up. This part of the canal that they're on is well maintained, recently paved. So there's not a lot of opportunity for ankle sprains or potholes or things of that nature. We did see on the way in this morning several Canadian geese that were itching to cross left and right. So, the only distraction there may be a goose or two that wants to cross, but we've got volunteers to help them along. But Carrier is in for really good conditions based on road quality here. But we do have those turns coming up and along the Bronson Bridge, as well as an out and back, which requires some sharper turns. So hopefully it holds up for him, but you never know, like you said.
Yeah, and we were talking about Flagstaff. Of course, Rory is based in Flagstaff. He's been there for a little while and training with the Verde Track Club. And the other competitor up there with CJ and Rory is Demeke Tesfaye. So he's an Ethiopian. He's a very experienced runner. He actually looks just looking at his stride, he looks quite comfortable. I don't think he's going anywhere soon. These guys have to watch out. Maybe he's going to be the next one to make a move here.
Tesfaye, 24 years old, ran Amsterdam in 2:11:48 earlier this year. With Linkletter, who is holding on to 2nd place, he came into this year. He had 2 main goals: top 10 finish at a major, which he checked off in Boston, finishing 6th. And he said to win a race. But then when we chatted this week, one thing that Linkletter talked about, he said, I don't want Boston to be the highlight of my year. He said, I want that to be kind of the launching pad as CJ takes the advantage on him. Linkletter, remember, competed for Canada at the Paris Olympics last summer, finished 47th. He called that a wake-up call. He said it was humbling to get crushed, and that's when he went back to the lab to kind of figure out what the next steps of his career would be. Linkletter admitted, look, I thought I arrived by making the Olympics. I found out that I needed an edge. And he said, post-Paris was a disappointment, but he said it made me look at this year as taking the next step towards LA 2028.
I think the work that he put in has certainly paid off. I hope that he finds the success he's looking for today, but that Boston finish, for me as a fan, was incredible. I was on my feet at home. I was yelling at my TV. I thought it was an extraordinary finish for him. So to go beyond that and to set a new highlight for the year, I'm really interested and curious to see what his next steps are after this event, or even the result of this event in light of that. So he's got really amazing big aspirations and goals, and it's well within his reach. So whatever he's working on and whatever he's doing seems to be paying off.
Meanwhile, on the women's side, it's starting to show some gaps between the leader and the rest of the pack.
Yeah, that group of about 6 women that were tucked in behind the Pacers, looks to be dwindling a little bit. You can see a few falling off. Looks like Paige Wood has fallen off just slightly, only a few seconds back, but a few seconds back, and when you're not with the group, it can seem quite daunting.
In this part of the course, as it flattens out and it's a pretty long straight stretch for a while, this is going to be an opportunity for them to get their headspace right. Technically, it's not challenging. Mentally, it can be, because it's just checking off those kilometers one at a time with a long out and a long back with a couple turns towards the end, but it is a tough one mentally, especially if they look across the canal on the other side and see that finish line. They're running away from it. For the elites, they're familiar with that feeling. For the general population, especially once people have started finishing and you hear those hooting and hollering at the finish line, but you are running away from it.
It's about a 12-kilometer stretch, pan flat along the canal right here.
Yeah, so right now we're just looking at Tesfaye there from Ethiopia. He actually ran the Mumbai Marathon earlier this year, and although the time didn't look that impressive at 2:11:56, he was only about 12 seconds off the lead at that Mumbai Marathon in January. So, if you look at these other 2 guys, it's also their second marathon, but that was only 5 weeks ago. So, Tesfaye, I would say, has the upper hand as far as being able to recover and doing a full sort of marathon build-up with the January 19th Mumbai Marathon.
For a moment there, I thought he was wearing cargo shorts just based on the color of his shorts. I did a double take. But,
it wouldn't be a bad plan to, if you needed to hold a couple extra gels, but
yeah.
A lot of these shorts will have a couple little secret pockets,
yeah.
and it's not uncommon for the elites, even though you're getting bottles, to have a gel on you in case you miss that bottle.
Sure.
Or someone may have taken your bottle, and you show up to a table and you don't see anything.
No surprises.
If you have that secret gel in your back pocket, you can use that and keep fueling yourself for the duration of the marathon.
So for those watching at home that may not be familiar with the elite field and the rules, there's quite a few, not necessarily different rules than the general population, but stricter, more maintained. Obviously, they're more upfront and more visible. Athletes cannot accept help or aid from anybody on the course, including extra energy gels, any extra water, things like that. So they aren't able to accept assistance from coaches aside from their designated bottles or what they bring with them, as well as some strict anti-doping policies as is standard across these events. At the end of the race, though, the top contenders will be screened for doping, as well as some random selection as well. So these athletes are under some strict monitoring and strict rules, but they are prepared for them.
Just trying to read the bib of the top women there. Our pace is still sort of in the way, but one of those athletes is Fantu Shugi from Ethiopia. She's already run a 1:11:03 half marathon in Riyadh earlier this year.
That got her a silver.
Yeah, and then I think the other runner is Meseret Gebra, who who's already run the Dubai Marathon this year. So 2:27 at Dubai. Last fall she was 2:24 in Toronto. So she knows Canada. She knows how to travel over here well and compete on Canadian soil.
Gabriel won the Barcelona Marathon in 2022, lives in Addis Ababa, made the trip from Ethiopia, as you said.
So yeah, we see, I'm not sure where Mercy Chelangat is, but she fell off that pace. Paige Wood, no longer around either. But yeah, we still have we have two Ethiopians tucked behind our pacer there, and Max Turek, who was the second pacer, peeled off in the last few minutes. So they just have one pacer to work with, and I don't blame Andrew or Max for peeling off. They had very, very fast 10Ks last night, 28:17 and 28:34 for the two of them. So it's a big weekend for them.
Sammy Karongo is the pacer for the lead women. Again, it's a 2:23 pace. Just shy of an hour to go. There. Meanwhile, Albert Carrier is out in front on the men's side, but he is starting to slow down. His last 2 kilometers have been 3:01, 3:11 respectively. It is a comfortable cushion ahead of Rory and CJ, but Carrier's with 12 kilometers to go, it'll be interesting as he takes a peek over his left shoulder to see if anyone's in his vicinity. Again, if you're just joining us, that's the New York City Marathon winner who's been dealing with an ankle issue. Had to skip Boston this year because of it, and this is his first competition of 2025.
Still 60 meters away.
Yeah, and he's looking over his shoulder quite a bit
is.
there. Like, I feel like every 10 to 15 seconds he's giving a little peek. He wants to know where they are.
He's laboring.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is the point in the course, in the race that really gets hard. So he's been running, for over 90 minutes here, running close to course record pace. He's put in some surges to get rid of his competitors. And, if you're looking over your shoulder that much, you probably want to try to win this race as easy as possible, right? So he doesn't want to cook himself, right? So he's looking for that right balance.
Yeah.
There he goes, looking over again. He's looking for that balance to keep those guys at bay. There's 3 of them working together. They have the advantage of the group. He's got the obviously advantage of being way up the road. So he doesn't want to let those guys get close to him where they can sort of smell, like the blood, and he also doesn't want to go so fast and increase that lead where he perhaps blows up. So he's checking over his shoulder and trying to keep a healthy lead on those 3 guys.
That's got to be taxing, not only physically, but mentally, to know that you are being chased. You're being chased, you have a lead. There's a lot on the line here with, 30 minutes, give or take, plus 30 minutes here left. So still a significant amount of work left, but holding that significant lead, knowing the injuries you've sustained, knowing that those individuals still have power in their legs and may make a move on you. Not only do you need to, maintain that burn through the whole body, but stay sane mentally and not get ahead of yourself. So a lot going on, and these are why these are elite athletes, because they can manage that discomfort.
We talked yesterday about the 10K runners saying they have to run through pain. They have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. It's around this stage of the race. Again, it's pretty flat for this 12-kilometer stretch. It's hard to see the finish line from here. This is where you really have to, this is where the mental grind takes over.
Yeah, no matter what, you're feeling tired at this point, even if you're not running fast, right? It's at 30K, it's a long ways. So, if they're fueling, that's going to really help them maintain energy levels. And then you're just trying to focus in on your motivation and still talk positively. So, it goes without saying that the prize money here is motivation, right? That's $20,000 here for the win, $12,000 for second.
It's huge.
$8,000 for third. The prize money goes right down to seventh. Of course, it's even for the men and women. The Canadian men and women have their own prize pool, so that's $3,000, $1,500, and $500 for first, second, and third. So yeah, if you're, if you're Rory, CJ, or Tesfaye there, and you're thinking, second or fourth, that's an $8,000 difference. That's 12,000 to 4,000. So it's worth pushing.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Now there are some wind gusts, and I mean moderate. It's not a windy day in Ottawa today. There are wind gusts that are happening up to 14 kilometers an hour northwest here, so you may see some athletes getting some crosswind sections, especially over the end of the canal section towards Dow's Lake, when the wind starts to feel a little bit more prevalent off the water. But the athletes will discuss that later on.
There's a look at McKenna Fitzgerald, the number 2 Canadian female at this stage of the 2025 Tartan Ottawa Marathon. Fitzgerald, a 25-year-old from Kamloops, BC, being paced by Olivier Roy Bergeron. It was Fitzgerald who ran the 10K here last year, did it in 34:10. This is McKenna's second career marathon. She ran Sacramento last December in 2:36:54. Fitzgerald's an interesting story. She was a hockey player in high school, didn't pick up cross-country running until she enrolled in university at Queen's. She was the only female on the track team when she went to do grad school at SAIT in Calgary. Ended up becoming a 3-time national champion at SAIT. Biochem grad. She's a medical professional now as a diagnostic medical sonographer, and here she is in her second career marathon as the number 2 Canadian at the 96-minute mark.
Wow, it is a really interesting story. I love hearing the stories of
Absolutely.
these athletes that come in a little bit later. They don't do the normal high school track and cross country and university track cross country. It's a different route. So McKenna split 1:17:38 through halfway. So she's on a 2:36 low pace, which will be a PB pace for her. So she's on a good one right now, and it looks like she's there with her pacer. Although she's not getting the wind blocked for her. She's
smiling though. Look at her smile. She's been smiling for the last 5 minutes.
Yeah, she's having a blast out there, and that's important. If you enjoy what you're doing, you're going to get through those tough sections. And I look at this group and I think, help her out a little bit.
Yeah,
guys.
someone step in front. Yeah, like she's got someone twice her size there on her right who could block some wind. Yeah, it looks like she's responding well to spectators in the crowd. They're waving, they're smiling, so that's awesome to see that she's really absorbing that energy.
Yeah, and here's a look at our lead woman, Meseret Gebra. So, unless there's somebody else tucked in, which I don't think so, or is there? Is it just one?
No, it's
one
just
athlete?
her.
Yeah,
Just
one
her.
athlete behind our pacer. So Meseret, like we said, she's already done a marathon this year. She was 2:24 last year in the Toronto Waterfront Marathon, and it looks like a quite sizable lead now. The next athlete there is Arnaud Franconi, and I think that's Shugi, her compatriot from Ethiopia, is the second place woman. You can see on the screen, but quite a ways back.
320. About 30 meters.
Gebra, familiar with Canada, finished 7th in the Toronto Marathon in 2:23. Wasn't pleased with that result, admitted wasn't in top shape at that time, returned back to Toronto last year.
Let's get a little bit closer.
Gebra again lives in Ethiopia but spent some time living in North America in the late 2010s. And she's competing less at this stage of her career than she did earlier.
Yeah, which is quite normal. Once you move to the marathons, like the events, just take a lot more out of you. The training's a bit more specific, so you're not doing the 5K, 10K, and whatnot. And as well as as you age, you are focusing a bit more on recovery. But what we see here, is Meseret's with the pacer. When you fall off that, it's not only you falling off and it's a bit discouraging, but you're also looking at another athlete who is still tucked in and has that advantage. So now we're looking over at Anne-Marie Comeau, our lead Canadian woman. She went through halfway in 1:16, right? So she's on a 2:32 pace. She's checking her splits. Jean-Philippe JP right in front of her, her partner. They train together. I'll often give them both workouts, and I give JP free rein. And lately he's been doing a lot of them just with Anne-Marie at her pace, getting her ready for this race before JP moves on to really focus on the trails later on this summer. And it's nice to see Jake Cameron, local here in Ottawa, still helping out with the pace. So, you know, it's a real advantage here for Anne-Marie to have two pacers here, just, you know, blocking wind and sort of just setting that intensity, setting that pace. Hopefully she doesn't have to think about, you know, where she's turning, how fast to run, et cetera, et cetera. These guys might also be pointing out when the bottles are coming up. So it's a lot of help. You know, it's not cycling where, you know, you're drafting, that makes a huge difference, but it makes enough of a difference that, you know, especially later on in the later stages of the race.
And it does look like the sun is peeking out a little bit. So on our monitor, there's a little bit of sunshine. You can see the shadows now for some of the athletes. I'm not sure how it feels out there, but typically when that sun starts to peek out, especially on this canal stretch with no shade in sight until the very end, it's going to start to feel a little bit more difficult. But we do have some of those cooling stations, those ice stations, as we mentioned, that are new for athletes as of this year. Oh, there's an ice bag, for example, in the lead women. They have those ice bags available, whether they choose to take them or not. So I'm not sure that sun's making a huge difference, but most athletes towards the latter part of the race and the general population will start to feel that heat as the day wears on.
Yeah, Albert Carrer's 30K split was still quite good, 1:30.18. They're calling Rory, Demeke Tesfaye, and CJ Albertson all at 1:30.40, so they're 22 seconds back. This happened about 10 minutes ago on the course. That was at 1 hour 30 minutes. They're at, you know, an hour 41 into this race. We still see Albert looking over his shoulder.
He's looking over and over.
And
Yeah.
he's checking his, I think he's got a watch on there. I'm not sure if he's checking that, but it seems to be in intervals. Look down, look back, look down, look back.
Yeah, he could have his GPS on. He could be looking at his, you know, his lap pace, his cumulative pace for the whole run. But you know, his 30K split is still showing that he's been averaging about 3 minutes per kilometer. You know, that's you know, going through 10K in 30 minutes 3 times in a row, and so he's gonna hopefully do it 4 times in a row and challenge this course record.
And you were talking about looking at their faces. I can see a little bit of a grimace, maybe on his face, that mouth opening a little wider. So he's hustling here. There is a fire in his belly, and he is looking to get that win.
Yeah, for sure. When he was pushing up that hill, he was working for it, and
Yeah.
he's been in the hurt box since. But you know, he still looks like he's moving quite well. So he's just digging deep for you know, for the last 10K here.
And these are like false flats. So this is an area where it's flat, but that slight incline is going to fatigue the legs more. So he might look down and see his pace shift naturally, just, you know, inches back. But that's when he has to find that expertise and that power in his legs and just pick it up, just to compensate for that slight undulation as the canal moves up and down.
Carrer's been working out with some other high-performance athletes, with Gibette Evans and Benson Gibruto. He said it's amazing how much you can learn from others when you share training regimens, you look at how they run, how they handle situations. He says, that's helped me so much over this last little stretch.
Yeah, I can't believe how much he's looking down at his watch, and you know, a GPS is a great tool to have, but it's also not, you know, at his level. If you are off by, you know, if the GPS is off by 1 second per kilometer, that's 42 seconds. Right now, that would be the difference between him getting the course record and not getting the course record. He's probably on 206 high pace, so say he's on 206.40 pace, but his watch is showing him one second per kilometer faster. He might think he's on course record pace. So really, the best thing to trust here are the the 5K, 10K, 15K. I mean, you're going to see splits every kilometer on this course, and you would just look over and compare that to your cumulative time on your watch, and not so much what the GPS says.
I thought it was a really interesting commentary yesterday too. I was watching some of the post-race interviews for the 10K with Graceland mentioning that at one point in the race, Graceland was our lead woman and winner of the women's 10K. She saw her high school coach at one point in the race, and she said that was the moment where she said, I got to win it for him, I got to go. And just wondering if any of these athletes out here, have those moments of support or coaches or surprise visits, and how much that really drives it home. And Reed, I mean, you've competed at this level in the elite events. Have you had those moments before where you've, spotted someone maybe or don't know, or maybe it's, a high five a kid or a sign or something that really does make a difference?
Yes, yeah, it happens all the time, especially in Ottawa or Toronto, and I might see a university teammate that I haven't seen for 10 years, on this side, and it's really neat when you're hearing, especially when you hear even just hearing your name, right? So if I would have done a marathon in Europe, I might hear my name a few times, but you come back here to Ottawa and it's constant, and it's very uplifting. So that might be one of the reasons why. It's nice for us to look up at the screen and see Rory's first name and Albert Carrier's last name, but also the fans can read those names and sort of chant, because Albert from even though he's won this race before, and he's from Kenya, and it's not like he's got a bunch of buddies out here on the course. He's going to know a few people, and but if he can hear his name, that's definitely uplifting.
I'd like to remind you that I cheered for you when you were in town.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, there was a group of us and we went wild. So I will credit your success to our cheers. I'll just, call that on television live for that credit.
Yeah, so that would have been the last time I
passed along some prize money.
Yeah, I know.
If I did divvy up all my
send you
prize
my
money
invoice.
of everyone who cheered my name, I don't know if I'd have much left. But the last time I ran this race was in 2019, and it was a hot day.
So hot.
So right now, we're looking at the lead man, Albert Carrier, looking over his shoulder, grimacing. He is hurting, but he's still keeping a really fast pace. And then looks like Rory is he's distancing himself from CJ now. So Rory is even though he's dropped off, the same thing at Boston. I got worried when he dropped off the pace, and then I saw him storm back. So his ability to push the end of a marathon is remarkable. He looks very strong there. If you just looked at the two pictures, I would say Albert looks like he's struggling more than
Definitely.
Rory is. Albert's up the road, so he's got the advantage. But Rory just looks like he's got an aggressive stride still, and just his composure looks like he's still like driving for home. Whereas Albert looks like he's thinking, can this finish line come any sooner, please?
Well,
Yeah.
let's get over to the lead women, because we have a little bit of a development. Meseret Gebre, who had a nice, comfortable lead, it is really dwindled, and our crew out there on the track say it got within 15 meters, and now, as you see, right there is competition with the lead women. It is neck and neck at the hour 48 mark of this marathon.
So I find this very interesting, because Andrew Alexander's back in the picture. So I thought he had dropped off, but he knows the rules. He did not drop out and then jump back in the course. So he would have drifted back with some of the other women, and he was out of our picture, and now he's brought another competitor right back up into the mix, and now we have two women up there.
It's a really interesting portrayal of that pacer's job, and their role in finding success for these elite athletes, and the effort that they put in as well, especially having done that fast 10K yesterday.
Yeah, and it is Mercy Changala. I thought it was. So Mercy, an athlete we talked about a bunch because she's had such a good career, but this is her debut, right? So you know, she may have gotten, you know, deep into the marathon around halfway and thought, oh my goodness, like there's still a lot of running
Here
to
we
go,
are,
and
yeah.
it seems a bit too much. And then, you know, as the race progressed, and you know, she got to that 30K mark, now may feel like, okay, I do feel confident that I can keep a good pace towards the end. So, you know, at 30K, they split 1:41.22 and 1:41.36. So she was 14 seconds back at, you know, about 7 or 8 minutes ago, and she's clawed her way back to be even now with Meseret Gebra. So we have this is really interesting. You know, when Meseret ran away from Fantu, I thought that was the winning move right there. And Mercy, our debutante, is right in the mix, and who knows, maybe we're watching that on the men's side too, with
Yeah,
Rory looking
he's catching up.
looking so good, and he's focused on Albert, and Albert's really focused on his watch and looking back at Rory too, right? So like that's,
Yeah.
you know, if I was, you know, in the lead, or if I was in second place and the leader was looking over his shoulder every once in a while, that would give me motivation
I think he noticed,
to go
yeah.
and catch that guy.
More than once in a while.
Yes.
It has been
Yeah.
ongoing from career. We talked to Linkletter this week. He said, it would mean more to me that I won a race with Albert in it. He said it makes the stakes bigger, and you can see the pace increasing here for Rory Linkletter, the 28-year-old from Calgary. Looked like he'd faded off, looked like career was running away with it, but the Canadian is staying in the fight.
Yeah, so at 35K, which was the last split that we have, Rory was 27 seconds back of him, 27, 28 seconds back, so half a minute. So from 35K to 42K, you know, that's 7.2K to make up, you know, about, you know, say 30 seconds is quite significant at this pace. Having said that, if you bonk towards the end of the marathon, you know, you can easily let 5-10 seconds per kilometer catch up on you. So I would say I'd still bet on career, but I would not count Rory out by any means at this point.
Linkletter excited about competing with Albert and CJ. He said, if you're able to beat Albert, if you're able to do it, it means you've beaten someone who has won a major. Linkletter said, I didn't believe this could even happen 6 months ago.
Incredible.
And now in this position, coming off a 6th place finish at the Boston Marathon, second fastest Canadian marathoner ever, running a 2:07:02 there.
And he's still young. He's 28, 29?
28.
Yeah, so he's got some time too to continue. So it's going to be a really interesting journey in the next couple of years to see him in the next Olympics and watch his development.
Meanwhile, on the lead woman, Meseret Gebra has given up the lead to Mercy Chelengad. And this is Chelengad, who's really put an emphasis on her training over the last 6 months or so. Admittedly, it's now a 24/7 commitment. Sleep, recovery, mobility, recovery. Talking to her coach, Jack Mullaney, Jack said, the person she wants to be in the race is the person she is in training. They've put a real emphasis on strength and durability, and they've said in the last 10K of races, that's where the payoff has come. You're seeing it here in Ottawa, coming up on an hour and 53 minutes, that it's Chelengad taking over on that side. We'll continue to keep you posted on what's happening as Albert Career still holds the advantage as the lead man.
Yeah, his lead still looks quite big. As good as Rory looks, that's a big gap. But I just love Rory's fight. I mean, he passed a couple of guys at the very end of the Boston Marathon. So, you know, he saw what happens if, you know, you don't give up, you keep pushing. Those guys in Boston that he caught, Clayton Young was one of them, and another BYU grad, that's where Rory went to school. I would bet a few kilometers before Boylston, they probably looked out of touch. So he probably learned a good lesson just to not give up. Anything can happen in these later stages of the race. And John's looking over. He's giving Rory that motivation that he's hurting, and and Rory's just got his eyes set on him, and you know, the women's race here, like, that looks very close with Meseret and Mercy. Andrew Alexander's, I think they went over a timing mat, and that was the 35K, and maybe actually Meseret has now dropped off quite a bit.
Yep, she has. She's back there, but again, you never know with the next bit. But I mean, like, this is pretty extraordinary, with Mercy tailing those pacers pretty toe to heel. It does look like the gap is widening, and Mercy's even pushing those pacers.
Yeah, she's you're
pushing
right.
it.
She's right on the heel. Andrew's been doing a good job staying with her. Meseret's probably wondering why the other pacer doesn't drop back with her, like the advantage. You know, typically pacers are given a certain pace that they have to follow, but when a pack splits apart, you know, the pacers can split apart and kind of like divvy up the pacing job, and that's what happened today. And it just so happened that that Mercy was feeling good in the second half of the race and came back with a pacer. So we don't often see that, but you know, it's within the rules, and that situation can easily play out, and we've seen it today.
And we talk about we talk about endurance being such a community-based sport, and it really, you know, we have these pacers that are handling our elites. We have all the elite volunteers and the elite crew supporting these. It's not just about your individual race. You have this community of individuals that are seeing through your success. And I just want to give a quick shout out to the volunteers that are here today. 2,500 volunteers throughout the weekend. Bib pickup, water, check-in, everything from medical. We have, you know, volunteers for 42 kilometers from 5 a.m., maybe even earlier, all the way through this afternoon that are out there in any sort of weather. And they do it just because they want to support and see every single athlete cross the finish line. So a shout out to our volunteers and our volunteer coordinators for being there for these athletes today.
Well, we saw Andrew Alexander peel off, his pacing job done, got Mercy right back up to the other pacer. We can see Arnaud Franconi. He was the lead Canadian man last year. He was the first Canadian man to cross the finish line, and it's really interesting to look at the two different styles.
Yes,
here
I was just going to say.
When you look at Arnaud, you know, he's got the power. You know, he's probably got a big engine. But, you know, you look at Mercy, and it's like her stride just looks so much more efficient and economical. Mm-hmm. Might not have like the raw power that Arnaud does, but you know, they're both kind of on that same pacing, getting the job done. But you know, Mercy looks like she could go for a lot longer.
Mm-hmm.
If you're just joining us, that's Mercy Chelangat of Kenya, who now trains in Flagstaff, Arizona. Her first Ottawa Marathon, 27 years young. Chelangat's brother Vincent came over from Kenya to run track at the University of Alabama. He's now a nurse in Colorado Springs. And because her brother was running, Mercy decided to get into the sport. Did some training camps in Kenya, joined up with an organization called Scalabook, and they connected with some U.S. coaches. They posted some time trials in the 3K and the 5K. So Mercy ended up moving to Texas UT Rio Grande Valley University. That was in the fall of 2018. She transferred to Alabama following in her brother's footsteps in the spring of 2019, and then turned pro when her university career ended. High mileage every day, she says, when she moved to Flagstaff. They've added the strength training. She spent now almost 7 years in North America. This is Chelangat's marathon debut, and she said, I need to get used to the distance. And here comes the payoff for somebody who has been grinding at it. Coming up on the 2-hour mark, she has a comfortable lead at the 2025 Tartan Ottawa Marathon.
I mean, what a way to get used to it by winning. You know, like, what an incredible debut. If she's able to sustain this right to the end, I would say that is a good thing that she attempted this event as her debut, and it's only going to be, again, another fascinating individual to watch in the next couple years.
And for those just waking up, that is Albert Career, his first competition of 2025, coming off an ankle injury that forced him to miss the Boston Marathon. He's not 100%, had a comfortable lead, it's shortened, and now it's widened again as we come up on the 2-hour mark. Career, 31 years old. His last race was in November in New York when he won it all. He came into this a little stressed. He wasn't quite sure where the ankle would be, but now Career has a lead over that man on the right, Rory Linkletter of Calgary, the 28-year-old who finished 6th in Boston. And Linkletter's got a comfortable hold on second place at this stage of things.
Yeah, these guys just went through 40 kilometers about a minute ago. So they have about 1,500 meters left of racing. And you know, that gap looks too big now. I mean, Rory looks great. He's finishing super strong. He's gotten rid of the 3rd and 4th place runners, but he won't catch Albert here. And Albert is doing as much as he can to stay in front. He's hurting. He's looking over his shoulder, but he looks like he's going to be a repeat winner. He won this race 6 years ago, and then back for more this year.
I bet we'll hear from those athletes after about the sun. It peaked out in true fashion for this race. That sun starting to creep in around that 9 a.m. mark. It has been historically something that has happened. If it's not already out at the start, it typically starts to come out. And then we see, especially in those age group athletes, folks start to struggle along those hills or those unshaded parts around that 9 a.m. to noon part of the day when the sun starts to beat down. For these elite athletes, I mean, their body temperatures are soaring now towards the end of the race. So I bet you we'll hear from them later that they felt that heat in that sun and are just hanging on. And this is also another beautiful part of the course. To the left of Rory, we have our Lansdowne Park, where the Ottawa Redbacks play, a huge, wonderful community of the glebe that tends to filter out of their homes to support athletes all along the canal. You can hear the bells and whistles. You can hear those cheers coming from the crowd. Also to mention, there are 26 cheer stations along this whole course. So every mile, there's a designated official cheer station from local community groups, whether they are dance troupes or bands or businesses. They've sponsored these cheer stations. They bring people out, and their mission for the entire course of the event, from elite to the final finisher, is to get everyone through the event. I think that must be their last bottle.
Yeah, that would be the last bottle station, somewhere around the 40K mark. Sometimes you don't take them at the end. You just don't feel like you need them, and other times you might just take a quick sip just to get you to the end. But it's nice to have there as a reassurance. But yeah, they don't often take the 40K bottle.
He's right at the end here, that final cheer station. You can tell he's hugging that close as the course is going to start to round through the left.
One of the top championship racers of his generation, Albert Career.
And so he was 2:01.18 at 40K. Typically you're going to have about six some odd minutes of running. So I'm going to guess Albert will probably be at 2:07 something, which is a very fast time on this course.
When he won it in 2019, it was 2:08.03.
Yeah, so he might be a little bit ahead of that. We'll see when he crosses the line, and Rory will likely have the fastest Canadian time ever on this course, probably by a few minutes.
Men's course record 2:06.04 in 2022. We may not get there today, but we're going to be pretty close.
Yeah, it'll probably be just over a minute off that. It's an incredible. No matter what, this is going to be an incredible time for Rory to run maybe under 2:09 here today. He ran 2:08 low to qualify for the Olympics. That was in a race that he had people to run with right to the end on a very fast course.
Seville last February.
Yeah. So there were guys with him right to the end, aiming for that 2:08:10 qualifying mark, automatic qualifying mark for the Olympics. So Seville is a very fast course, and he was in a group for 42.2K. Today, he's had to do the last part solo with, dispatching CJ and chasing Albert. And if he's under 2:09 today, I'm going to say that this is going to be one of his best performances ever. I mean, of course, 2:07 at Boston's a good, very good result. It's not an official time with the downhill nature of the course, point to point. It's not necessarily a fast course, but Boston was a fast day this year. A lot of people saw the fastest times ever at Boston. But this would be definitely going to be one of his best performances ever.
Linkletter said his mindset coming into today, not to hold back. Do whatever it takes to win. He called this Ottawa course and competition a proving ground.
Yes, and you did mention he's glad Albert's here. It makes the competition that much more stiffer.
Increases the stakes.
Yes,
said.
it totally does. But part of me wonders right now if he wished Albert hadn't twisted his ankle in Boston, and he would just be winning the Ottawa Marathon. There are really good marathoners who go through their whole career without winning a marathon race. You don't do that many, and if you're someone of Rory's caliber and you're doing very competitive races like Ottawa and Boston, in Toronto, and whatever he plans to do in the fall, and the Olympics and the World Champs, there's not that many opportunities to actually win a race. So this would have been a very good opportunity for him to do it. And unfortunately, he's up against a New York City champion. Albert Carrier is 2 for 1 against Maratona, who's the Olympic champion. So he's got a winning record over some of the best marathoners in the world. So he's up there with the best. And if Albert had the opportunity to run on a very fast course like a Berlin, a Chicago, I'm sure he'd have a much faster PB, but in the last few years, he's focused on Boston and New York, which aren't necessarily, they aren't fast courses, but he's up there.
Also keeping in mind too, we discussed this yesterday, the Ottawa Marathon course changes. It fluctuates based on road closures, construction year to year. So the last time Carrier ran this course, it might have been different.
Yeah, it would have been a little bit different. I ran in 2019 as well, and looking at some of those steep hills around Rockcliffe, I did not run those, so I know it is a bit different. I would have remembered.
Don't
that.
worry, I have. It's okay.
So now we're really like in the closing stages of Albert Carrier's run here.
This is that final turn, and he'll see those barricades towards the finish line, and that's when that we'll get that finishing moment for him.
Yeah, so he'll be hard pressed to still be in the 2:07s, I believe. He'll. Oh wow! Look at Roy. He looks
He's chasing him.
It looks very close.
It looks close.
But these camber angles can be deceiving. But
Linkletter's going for it.
He totally
He's going
is.
for it.
He's not giving an inch.
Those shoulders are up. We are moseying along. I haven't seen any shoulder checking from Carrier. Oh, there it is. Never mind. I spoke too soon. He's got to look the other way.
One of the best championship racers of his generation. Top 6 3 times in Boston, Albert Carrier returns to the nation's capital. Rory Linkletter right there, but he won't do it this year, not in 2025.
But he's made a lot of ground on him. He's only about 10 seconds back now. Like that last split that we had, he was 30 seconds back. So here we go. Here's the finish line.
The champion in New York, and now the Carrier has a second Ottawa title. Albert crosses first in 2025.
Great run. So 2:08:21, similar time it was when he won 6 years ago. It looks like he probably gave up some time there at the end. He was on 2:07 pace. And Rory, like I said, like 2:08 on this course versus his Seville. I know this is not his PB, his official PB, nor it's his third fastest official time, but it's just as good as his other 2 runs.
Congratulations to Rory Linkletter. Top Canadian, finishes second overall, the 28-year-old. As we see CJ Albertson, the American, cross the line third. 1, 2, 3 with 3 heavyweight runners, one of the most competitive races that this marathon has had.
There's Rory with his wife.
Rory born in Calgary, moved to Utah at the age of 5, got into running as a freshman in high school, represented Canada at Paris 2024 last summer at the Olympic Games. So 1, 2, 3 is now complete.
And here comes Demeke Tesfaye for 4th. As comfortable as he looked, and I thought he looked a bit more comfortable than CJ and Rory. He was the one that ended up fading, but it looks like he's got 4th place secured, so he's just sort of jogging it in. He knows what place he's going to be. He's not too concerned about with the time anymore.
He's incredibly light on his feet. The foot contact with the ground, it looks like he's almost floating. And I find the top 4 men here such different running styles from one another. Really, really fascinating to watch and observe.
Tesfaye ran a 2:11:48 in Amsterdam and earlier this year. 24-year-old from Ethiopia. And he will be a good minute faster than earlier this year. Solid run for Demeke Tesfaye, finishing 4th here in Ottawa.
I mean, his reaction is all of us. Take his seat after. I think that's an honest reflection of a big effort, is to take that seat right when you're finished.
So now we're back with the lead woman here.
Mercy Chelangat.
Still has her pacer. Good for her.
That is a committed pacer.
Pace was 2:23 coming into it. Chelangat in her Ottawa debut.
Yeah, they split through halfway in a faster pace than 2:23. So they were pressing. Although Mercy was back of Meseret at the halfway point, but she clawed her way back to take the lead, and her pacer there is encouraging her to stick with him and still press the pace. But yeah, she's very well. She's never run this far, this hard before, being her debut marathon. So this is new territory for her, and she looks pretty good doing it.
She's working. You can see it in the face, but she's able to maintain that pace and keep that lead. You can see the crowd of volunteers and the supporters, invited guests of our elite athletes, and all of those people that are taking care of those athletes as they cross the finish line with their nutrition, medical support, interviews, everything they need in order to recover and move along after their success today.
For Chelangat, there are a lot of signs that show the marathon will be her best event. Again, she's early in her career. When you speak with people around her, they'll tell you the longer the distance, the better she does, and showing that now at the age of 27 here in Ottawa.
And I'm not going to let that 40-kilometer sign fool me again. That's when I saw...
40 kilometers per hour, yeah.
That's the speed limit. Yeah, that's what I saw when Albert Creer and Rory Linkletter came by. I thought they were at 40K, and then they came up to the 40-kilometer water bottle table, and I was a bit confused. So that 40 in the background is just the speed limit. Mercy has about 10 more minutes of running. She's been averaging 3:23 per K up until this point, so that's about a 2:22 high, 2:23 low pace. So they were a bit faster through halfway, but then they've slowed again, as the race gets tougher at the end. But yeah, about 10 more minutes of running for Mercy Chelangat in her debut marathon here in Ottawa.
Yeah, and she'll be feeling that heat a little bit as well. as she sticks to the left-hand side of the road where there is less shade. At least the sun is kind of poking out from the back and on her right shoulder, so it's not quite right in her face. But in this section of the canal where it is fairly open, it does start to bear down on you. But it is nice that these athletes are facing the sun from behind rather than right in the eyes.
Yes, and training in Kenya, you are definitely getting used to some very hot sun.
Right now?
Definitely.
Where Mercy would train, you're within 100 kilometers of the equator, and you're at 2,400 meters, so you're very close to the sun. And somebody like me would get burned there in about 10 minutes in the middle of the day. So, yeah, it's not what you want. You don't want hot weather, but I'm sure she's pretty used to it. And also, her NCAA career was down in Alabama, and I've also trained in Alabama. Their competitors, the Auburn, but you know, it's really hot and humid down there. So now we go back to our lead Canadian women. Anne-Marie Comeau is still there with her pacer, Jean-Philippe Thibodeau, and you know, he's doing a great job of just maintaining a consistent pace. It doesn't look like there's anybody else around her. I can't see any competitors behind. I'm not sure if she is caught up to anybody in that lead pack who fell off or not, but she's looking really strong. And I'm gonna do a little quick pace calculation and come back and see if she's on pace for a PB. Especially, as her coach, I would love to see Anne-Marie run a PB today.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, she looks just as smooth as she did when we were chatting about her back through that Quebec section. She doesn't look like she's struggling any more or less. Mind you, she definitely will be, but she looks smooth, she looks comfortable. It doesn't look like she's fighting the course or the event at all. Again, once we hear from her, I'm sure the opinion will be different, but it's really refreshing to see such strong Canadian legs. So close to the finish line now. She's just past Bank Street not too long ago, is up running north towards that finish line in that full heat, full sun. So she is so close to getting into that finish line view.
Yeah, so far up to 35K, she has averaged 337 per kilometer. So that puts her at about a 232 high pace, her PB being 234. If she can be 232 high or 233 low, that would be a really good run today. For Canadian women to have a 233 on this course is a great run, right? And she might be actually sitting. I'm looking at some of the splits here. They don't pick them up all up, but she might be in 6th overall right now, which is a great which is a great finish in this very international field.
Incredible finish and incredible time overall. And I know as a Canadian athlete, she is getting extra support from all the individuals left, right, and center as they see her vying for that top Canadian spot.
Yeah, and as we mentioned earlier, that top Canadian spot comes with a $3,000 payday, so that's only for the Canadian. So Rory would have got $12,000 for second place and another $3,000 for first Canadian, so making his total $15,000 on the day. So
wow,
a nice little payday.
Yeah.
Much higher than what he'd get at Boston. Well, I wouldn't say much, but a bit higher maybe than Boston. Finishing 6th there.
it's not a bad way to spend a weekend.
Not a bad way to spend a weekend.
Yeah, both CJ and Rory. It's really interesting to see. Like I said, as an announcer, somebody taking a risk like that to do Boston and then Ottawa, sort of like get the popcorn out. Let's see how this goes. And it could be great. It could be a disaster. And they both fared really well coming back. And he's done these sort of things before and done well at it, but it's a bit new territory for Rory. And he came away with 2 really good marathons in a 5-week period. And here we see Mercy she just keeps chugging along and looks great. It's going to be really interesting to see how her career is. This going to be something similar to Albert, where Albert wins Ottawa, gets his name out there, gets into the New York and Boston fields and really mixes it up with the best in the world. And this could be the springboard for Mercy as well. She might win Ottawa. We've seen past Toronto and Ottawa champions use that as a springboard. The big marathons, they see, like a New York City marathon, they see these results, and if you're able to win here in Ottawa, you're able to mix it up with the New York marathon elites,
Yeah, definitely.
and then if you see someone win, it's just like it's a great story. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is going to springboard Mercy to a really good marathon career.
Mercy Chellengat running away with it here at the Ottawa Marathon. If you missed it earlier, at the beginning of the year, Chellengat competed in the half in Houston, then went back home to Kenya, and she wanted to visit family and friends, but also linked up with some elite marathoners when she got back home. And that really opened Chellengat's eyes to what it takes. Came back in her best fitness, realizing what it takes to be a marathoner. There was a real point of emphasis in strength training. And they said in the last 10K, that's where you'll see it. And it is evident here today. Chellengat in the home stretch where she is going to win her first career marathon here today, Jenna.
Yeah, well, 1 more kilometer-ish to go here. I'm going to take a quick moment here before that finish just to acknowledge these women. And I know that the city has really put in a lot of effort in acknowledging and representation with diversity and supporting our women. The Run Ottawa community also now creating and championing events that are specifically for elite women. And I know that the crowd down here, and this is me getting choked up once, the third time today. I know the crowd, it means a lot to have these strong women represented from Canada and from all over the world, and hats off to Run Ottawa for championing diversity in our race and encouraging women in sport, as well as our addition of a non-binary field this year. So great job to Run Ottawa for continuing to get these women seen and to the finish line with such support.
The 40K split for Mercy Chellengat was 2:15:55. That puts her at 3:24 pace, so 3 minutes 24 seconds per kilometer, which would give her a 3:23 mid. So she's looking at a 3:23 mid debut here at the Ottawa Marathon. This is a great debut, and she's put a lot of distance as well on some athletes who have had run very fast times. It looks like Mesret Gebra fell off this pace, and Visaline Jip Kesho, her compatriot from Kenya, has taken over second spot. Can't see her on the screen, but the splits are saying that Visaline has overtaken Mesret for that second spot.
In a lot of ways, you get the sense that this is the arrival of the next one.
And there she is making that turn, starting to approach those barricades where the crowds will have undoubtedly gathered to watch her finish. Now, Reed, will we see her pacer drop off before the finish?
Yeah, usually they do. Actually, a lot of times they ask the pacers to drop off at about 40K, especially if there's a race still going on, right? You don't want a pacer in there if there's 2 women still battling.
Sure.
And then of course you just want to give, at this point, the race photo. You don't want the pacer in the race photo. So at this point he should peel off and just let Mercy run it alone and get the cheers of the crowd. Like you mentioned before that you're going to see the barricade soon, and the crowds are going to get much thicker, and she really doesn't need a pacer.
No, she's good.
In the last few hundred meters.
She's being chased by, I think, a friend or a teammate there on the side and smiling as well. So she's definitely getting some crowd support from folks that she knows.
The pace was 2:23. The target, bang on.
Yeah, they just clocked over the 2:23 flat mark, but I think she can still be under 2:24 here. As you like you said, once you see the barricades, you're in the final couple hundred meters, and we'll see where it finishes. She's run 31:15.
There, he's letting her go.
So she's got a fast 10K time. She's got the 1:08 half, and now she's going to have a 2:23 to her name. This is a great debut.
Showing no mercy for the field. Chellengat, the champion in Ottawa. First career marathon title in the books.
No, she's such a lovely person. I'm so thrilled for her.
The embrace with her coach, Jack Mulhaney. Made the trip from Minnesota. Mercy Chalangat. They said the longer the distance, the better she does. The payoff comes today in the Tartan Ottawa Marathon.
And there is a Flagstaff, overwhelming Flagstaff, what's the word I'm looking for? They've done really well. So if you look back at yesterday, Grayson Larkin, training in Flagstaff, she won the 10K. Charles Philibert Thibodeau, CPT, came from training in Flagstaff. He won the men's 10K. Mercy Chalangat from training in Flagstaff, just won the women's marathon. And Rory Linkletter lives and trains in Flagstaff second. So they almost got Flagstaff almost got 4 first place finishes today. If it wasn't for Albert Carrier twisting his ankle before the Boston Marathon.
Something about the altitude.
Yeah. Note to self, go train in Flagstaff.
And look at Mercy, she's stopping her watch now, good for her, then do it across the line. And she, of course she looks tired, but she doesn't look spent. I think if she was pushed, she would have gone faster today.
Meanwhile, top Canadian Anne-Marie Comeau.
And we haven't had a second place come in yet.
No, second place woman at the 40K mark was 4 minutes behind Mercy.
Okay, wow.
So you're not likely to see someone come through until 2:27, 2:28, and it's still only 2:25 on the clock.
So Comeau, as we talked about, Olympian in cross-country skiing, mountain and trail running athlete of the year, going to be the top Canadian marathoner. What's the next sport to conquer for this 28-year-old from Quebec?
Well, she actually already has the World Championships of mountain running lined up in September.
Of course she does.
So
Of course, yeah, naturally.
she will be going to a World Championships this year. And as her coach, she's probably going to throw a lot of races at me, and we're going to figure out which ones make the most sense. But we could see her at the Canadian Half Marathon Champs later this summer in Edmonton. Her hometown race is the Quebec Mega Trail. She has the course record at the 25K there. She could be doing the 5K on the track. She loves that. She loves the faster stuff, even though she's doing the marathon. But there'll be some exciting races, that's for sure. And the World Championship, Mountain Running Championships will definitely be the A goal after this. So she really did want to put everything into Ottawa. Like I said before, she's trained for marathons, but also been sidetracked by other cool races along the way. But this particular build-up has been very focused on the Ottawa Marathon. It's a race that she's raced before she really was serious about it, and she wanted to come back here and run it competitively. And she's doing that, and she looks very strong. She looks like she's moving still really well.
She's smiling at all of the cheers and acknowledging that, so that is great to see. People recognizing that she is the top lead Canadian and rooting her on here.
Yeah, and not only that, she's in 5th, and that might be 4th place.
That is 4th place.
Passing right now. So, if she's top 4 at this race, that's a great result in itself, right? This was a really good international field with a bunch of women with 223, 224 PBs, and I think we're seeing second place coming here. I mentioned Visseline Jepkesho overtook Meseret Gebra for second, so here she comes in 4.5 minutes in arrears of Mercy Chalangat. So second place, also from Kenya. Visseline Jepkesho.
Number 73 in the world rankings, Jepkesho. She was the winner in Paris back in 2017, the runner-up here in Ottawa in 2025. Still doing it at age 37.
Wow. Good for her. Amazing. I love to see, veteran athletes still crushing it out there, committing to those goals and still championing their sport into their 30s or into their 40s.
She looks more tired than most.
She does, a little bit, yeah.
But you always get, when you cross that tape,
there's
there's a bit of adrenaline. that
A
comes
little
with
bit
it,
of
too.
overwhelm and some emotion.
But she's going to be happy with second place, right? Like, that's, to finish second at the Ottawa Marathon and get a really good payday. She'll go home very happy. So here we have one of the elite men coming in, Francois Jarry. A very good marathoner in his own right. Probably not what he wanted to see today, but still going strong to the end. And then I believe that's the third place woman that we're seeing on our screen there. So Meseret Gebra.
Led for the first half or so of the race.
Yeah, at one point, I'm pretty sure I thought she had the win locked up when she got away from her compatriot Fantu Shugi. I thought that was the winning move, but it looks like she faded quite. She's probably feeling. I'm gonna guess maybe not fueled up. If you're losing that much energy towards the end, but yeah, she faded and she's just. Knowing she's still going to get on the podium there, she's not giving up, but also not fighting for every second.
Canadian women making the top 10 women right now with Anne-Marie Como, McKenna Fitzgerald, and Claudine Soucy. Now these stats might not have updated on my end, but right now those women are holding the top 10.
So Meseret Gebre will finish third in 2025 here in Ottawa. Strong start, and will reach the podium, the Ethiopian.
She looks tired too, rightfully so. 42K is no easy feat.
And under 2:31. And there is Anne-Marie Como, the Canadian, will finish as the top Canadian.
Now the question remains, will she break 2:33? It would be really nice to have a 2:32 PB by her name. That would put her in some pretty rare company in Canada right now. Of course, you have Melindy and Natasha with their 2:23, 2:24 up there, and Leslie Sexton's on 2:28. But then once you get, Rachel Hanna, who ran last night, she's got a 2:32 PB. Former medalist at the Pan Am Games, but 2:32 kind of puts you, in that upper echelon. Nothing wrong with 2:33 either, but I'm just sort of like
great,
really,
amazing.
really hoping to see that 2:32, and that she's going to be like
She's close,
right on that edge there. So hopefully she's. Looks like the lead bikes. Letting everyone know that the lead Canadian woman's coming through, and she'll get great cheers. And
oh yeah.
she can probably see the finish line banner from here. And
so what happens, Reed, in these last 100 meters, 200 meters? You're top Canadian. Do you feel, myself as an athlete, I've cried only a handful of times at the end. Do you feel that emotion? Do you feel that what goes through your head in these moments? Do you, you're also male, so expectations are low.
When I'm running myself, I don't really feel those emotions. I would feel more emotional watching someone overcome something and watching them, break the line or finish or whatnot, or one of my athletes doing really well.
Totally.
I would get way more emotion than myself.
Yeah.
Usually at this point, you're just hurting so much, you just want it to be over, and you're just thinking, get to that finish line, and it looks like the clock might just click over the 2:33 low, but this is a sizable PB for Anne-Marie and a really great run.
Congratulations
as a Canadian,
to her.
I'm happy, and of course as a coach, it's really great to see a PB by over a minute.
Well over a minute. 2:34.51 had been the PB. She'll break that by a good 90 seconds. And there's Stephen Anderson, the elite race coordinator, handing the maple leaf over to the 28-year-old Anne-Marie Como.
Incredible. Reed, you've done a great job as a coach. A little plug for Reed Coolset as elite endurance coach if you're ever looking for one. Your athletes are doing great this weekend.
But how about that? Winter Olympian 2018, top Canadian 2025. Anne-Marie can do it in all seasons.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we missed a bunch of the lead men that came in. So there's McKenna Fitzgerald. This is going to be our second place woman. She actually looks really good. Like
So strong.
This deep into the race, she's smiling. She's not. It doesn't look like she's struggling that much. As Arash mentioned earlier, she's newer to running, and I think this. She's got a good career ahead of her.
Second career marathon, made her debut in Sacramento, California last December. She ran that in 2:36:54. Second trip to Ottawa for Fitzgerald in this event. She ran the 10K here last year in 34:10.
So as we were watching a lot of the lead women go through, we saw the top 3 men, Canadian men, go through. So we saw Rory, obviously second place overall, but we have Tristan Woodfine in 2:13:21, finishing 7th, and Blair Morgan, who's a local here in Ottawa, run 2:19:36 for 9th place overall. So that's our second and third place Canadian men, Tristan Woodfine and Blair Morgan. That's 5th place there overall for the women who just came. So Anne-Marie did get 4th overall, and Salem Fente was our 5th place finisher. And we're back to McKenna Fitzgerald.
Second place
Doesn't
Canadian.
look like she's going to PB today, but it doesn't also look like she'll be far off. So she ran a good race last year in Sacramento.
Won the Royal Victoria Half Marathon in October of last year. A late bloomer, again, only began running in university, was a hockey player through high school. Started her university career at Queen's, and then grad school at SAIT in Calgary. 3-time national champion at the CCAA level. And now here's McKenna Fitzgerald, only 25 years old, is going to finish as the top 2 Canadian in this Tartan Ottawa Marathon.
Yeah, and not only top 2 Canadian, but it looks like she's going to be about 7th overall.
She's killing it. She
She
looks
may-
so
she-
comfortable.
She may have actually passed 6th there. I'm not sure, but she's in 6th or 7th place overall. This is great to see. So she did run 2:36 in Sacramento, but that really is a fast course. It's a net downhill course. This is not. So even though her time might be a bit slower today, as far as a performance goes, it's kind of on par. So there's Phyllis Ongore's Kenyan, but she's been living in Canada for quite some years. She's has had really good results about 10 years ago, and she's still running well. She was about 2:37, 2:36 or 2:37 last year at the Toronto Waterfront Marathon. So she's kind of be on that same sort of performance again today. But it's a bit far off of what she was doing about 10 years ago when she was running 2:23 and finishing high up at the Boston Marathon.
I think McKenna is sitting in 6th right now, if I'm not mistaken, which is incredible. What an amazing finish for our top 2 Canadian women. And
Yeah.
she's motoring here at the finish.
Yeah, it's always nice to double dip into
Yeah.
that the prize money there. 4th place paying $4,000, 5th $2,000, 6th $1,000. So McKenna will get $1,500 for 2nd Canadian and another $1,000 for 6th overall, and 2:37:57. That's nice that she got her that 2:38 mark. That's to me that's just as good as her race in Sacramento last year. So
She looks okay too.
she looks good doing
okay.
it. Yes.
So strong. She's smiling. She's upright. She looks healthy. Enjoy a really nice lunch.
Yeah, and she did have Phyllis there to kind of spur her on to the end, but in general it didn't look like they had the women were really spread out there, and Anne Marie did have a pacer for a long way, but it's a lot nicer when there's a pack and you're kind of feeling the competition right through the end.
Definitely.
So we came into this thing expecting Albert Carrier to win, and he did. Little bit of question because of the ankle, but the former New York City champion does it here in Ottawa for a second time, and then Mercy Challengat. In her debut in the marathon, just absolutely sent a message to the running world that she's here and she's here to stay.
Yeah, she looks like a marathoner.
Yeah.
So she's had the 31:15 10K under her belt and the 1:08 half. And now that she's done her first marathon, it looks like this is an event that she can do well at, and it will be a springboard to a good marathon career.
So let's take a look at the official standings here. We have the top 5 for both the men and the women. Let's start with the men's side. Obviously, Carrier. That was the story today. But Rory Linkletter of Calgary was right there. And just when it looked like Carrier was running away with it, it was Linkletter who just wouldn't really give in and finished about 10 seconds behind.
What a close first and second. Really impressive. Rory, Rory, you could tell that fire was there. He didn't quit. There wasn't any hesitation with him. It'll be interesting to see how he feels with those post-race interviews, but he did a really great job today.
Yeah, we saw him battle right to the end at Boston and pick off a couple of guys in the last few hundred meters, and he brought that again today, where he was 30 seconds back of Carrier with a few kilometers to go, and he made up 20 seconds in the last few kilometers, which is really tough at the end of the marathon. So there was no quitting in him, and a 2:08:31 on the Ottawa course versus his official PB of 2:08:01, I think, in Seville. This is just as good, given that he didn't have a pack to run in the whole way. He was just sort of chasing. So that's a really good result for Rory moving forward.
Linkletter talked about his goals being top 10 finish at a major, which he got in Boston this year, and then winning a race. And obviously, silver is not gold. What do you learn from a day like today, going up against a competitor like Carrier?
Yes, I mean, like Carrier, like I said before, like he's 2 for 1 against Tamarat Tola, the Olympic champion, right? He's won New York City Marathon. So he's beaten the best runners in the world, and Rory's 10 seconds back, right? So that's got to be a good confidence boost for Rory, knowing that he can finish 6th at the Boston Marathon and 5 weeks later really replicate another performance at that level. It shows that he's moving in the right direction. He's still young. 20 years old. I never ran my first marathon until I was 29. He already has, a bunch of really good marathons under his belt. So it'll be really cool to see what he does in the next year and moving up to LA in 2028.
To have 2 Canadian women finish as well as they did.
So great, and they were so a pleasure to watch too. The interaction with the crowd and watching their calm and composure. It's incredible. It's inspiring. It's inspiring as a Canadian athlete as well. I'm so proud of them, and I can't wait to see both women continue in their fields.
It's amazing. 36,000 competitors in Tamarack Ottawa race weekend. It's amazing how much juice the elites give. I mean, take a look at these top women. You have people from all over the world, and you have Canadians right there. And if you can see it, you can be it. And Anne-Marie Comeau is giving a lot of kind of inspiration to a lot of young Canadian athletes out there that you can belong with the best on the planet.
Totally, and historically in this event, when we've watched these athletes go, when we rush to the finish line and we look for the elite field, we haven't seen a lot of Canadians in those top 10. So it's been in the last couple of years with some excellent coaching and opportunity, especially for women, excellent coaches, thank you so much, that have provided these women with these incredible splits and times, and it's only getting better. So now it's exciting to be able to bring our kids and say, well, watch for the Canadians because they're going to make that top 10.
It's so important to have the elite field in this event, isn't it?
It really is. I always find there's like a trickle-down effect, right? So the elites are there, and then you have, the elites like Blair Morgan, who finished 3rd on the Canadian side, and Tristan Woodfine. Tristan lives in the Ottawa area. Blair's right here in Ottawa. And so they're here, throughout the rest of the year. And the other like local elites can see them and they're like, okay, now I'm running with, you know, someone who finished top 10 at the Ottawa Marathon. So, and these guys want to run here because Albert Career and Rory Linkletter are here, right? So there's this trickle down effect that, you know, there's always like this sort of 1 degree of separation. And you know, without the excitement at the front end, you know, there's still, of course, you can have a great event, but it's not the same, you know.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the same excitement.
Also adds when the Prime Minister is just hanging out outside,
It does.
watching all the elites go by and just kind of waving to everybody too.
Yeah, it's just the event is so special and it draws so many people out, including our federal and municipal leaders. So, and they're on the course too. You know, I'm tracking our mayor who's, you know, approaching that 30K mark now, and it's pretty extraordinary to have just the whole town, you know, 200,000 spectators plus the athletes. A quarter of the population is here.
It's been a lot of fun. Thanks so much. Jenna
Thank
Ladd,
you.
Ruud Coolset, Arash Madani saying so long. This has been the 2025 Tamarack Ottawa Race Weekend, where Albert Career has his second Ottawa Championship under his belt. And how about Mercy Chellengat getting it done on the women's side? For all of us here, thank you so much for watching. We hope to see you back in 2026.